Konoha, the birth of the ninja clan. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1, Elves on the Battlefield. Ding. Yushin used a kunai to block the oncoming samurai's sword and quickly lowered his body, curled up and crashed into the arms of the big man with his arms wide open. He swung his arm lightly and the kunai slashed upwards, slicing the big man's throat. Regardless of the big man's horrified eyes, his body flashed again and the kunai stabbed into the back of another enemy who was fighting with Akano. Huh, I'm saved. Akano looked at the enemy who was so ferocious just now lying on the ground motionless, and felt relieved in his heart. If Yushin had been a little later, he would have fallen to the ground. Akano breathed a sigh of relief. The tension and fatigue during the battle just now made his injured body unable to support it anymore, and he collapsed directly to the ground. The red hedgehog head was soaked with sweat, drooping listlessly on his head, covering the forehead protector on his forehead. After lying on the ground and resting for a while, he turned his head and shouted to a short-haired girl standing not far away, "Zizzy, come and bandage me, I'm injured." "Oh, sorry, I was distracted." Zizzy was startled when she heard Akano's shout. After she came to her senses, she quickly apologized to Akano and ran to his side to bandage his wound. Zizzy is a medical ninja, but she was born in a civilian family. In addition to the most basic 3-body technique taught in school, she has a better ability to control chakra. She didn't even have the opportunity to learn the most basic hemostasis technique of medical ninjas, and could only simply deal with external injuries. At the same time, her soft personality made her combat effectiveness very poor, and she was almost of no help to this team. After helping Akano deal with the wound, Zizzy looked at Yushin, whose figure kept flashing, with a worried look on her face. With every appearance of Yushin, an enemy would fall down. A killing was turned into a dance performance by him. Yushin was like an elf jumping on the battlefield, but he was playing the death march. Is Yuta-kun okay? Although the enemy was almost defeated by Yuta, Kiko still asked with a worried look on her face. Don't worry, Yuta is also very strong. But where is teacher Suzuki now? Humph. Let us do the task by ourselves. He, on the other hand, is hiding somewhere. Akano was not worried about Yuta's safety at all. They have been in the team for almost a year. He knows Yuta's strength better than anyone else. A group of bandits can't hurt Yuta. But he was a little unhappy with Suzuki, who was hiding somewhere. How could the instructor disappear when the team is doing a task and let the students complete the task by themselves? As the last enemy fell, Yuta vigilantly observed the surroundings. After finding that there were no remaining enemies, he took back the kunai and walked towards Akano and Kiko. Looking at the young man with silver hair, wearing grey clothes and a calm face walking towards him, the smile on his face made people feel very relieved. Seeing that Yuta was not covered with blood, although it was not the first time they had seen him, the two couldn't help but exclaim, "So strong." Looking at the two stunned teammates, Yuta said gently, "Okay, the mission is completed. It's time to meet up with Suzuki-sensei." As he spoke, he bent down, helped the injured Akano up, and nodded to Kiko beside him. "Let's go." As soon as the voice fell, Yuta took Akano and jumped onto the tree next to him and quickly ran to the gathering place. "Oh." Looking at Yuta supporting Akano's back, Kiko whispered gently, "Yuta-kun is also very gentle." After saying that, she hurriedly followed. When the three arrived at the gathering place, they saw Suzuki, who had long black hair and wore a Jonin vest, holding a straw in his mouth, lying on the tree with his legs crossed and resting leisurely. Akano couldn't bear it any longer and yelled at him, "Teacher Suzuki, you are resting here while your students are fighting the enemy. Do you feel comfortable with this? Look how badly I'm injured." "Ah, haha. What?" Looking at the angry Akano and Kiko glaring at him with puffed cheeks, teacher Suzuki jumped down from the tree and tried to defend himself awkwardly. However, Yuta noticed that there was a trace of blood on Suzuki's wrist exposed by his sleeve, and a cut was made on the sole of his shoe by a sharp weapon. "It seems that there is still something you don't know about." Yuta narrowed his eyes, but did not expose Suzuki's behavior. "Don't ask if you shouldn't know." When Suzuki saw Yuta smiling with squinted eyes, he knew that the task was completed smoothly. Then he said nonchalantly, "Don't worry about it, the mission was completed very well." Seeing that Akano wanted to say something, Teacher Suzuki waved his hand and said righteously, "Okay, since the mission has been completed, let's go back to the village to hand in the mission now. After that, the teacher will treat you to barbecue." Hearing that someone was treating him to barbecue, the carefree Akano immediately forgot his previous unhappiness. He immediately urged, "What are you waiting for? Let's go quickly, otherwise the barbecue restaurant will be closed if it's too late." After saying that, he ran directly to the road leading to the village without paying attention to his injuries. Looking at the carefree Akano, Yushin was envious. This kind of free and easy attitude can make people live happier. But thinking about his own situation, Yushin could only look forward to it in his heart. Yushin and Teacher Suzuki followed Akano and Kiko slowly. Listening to Kiko's urgent calls and Akano's screams, Yushin couldn't help but smile. Seeing that his usually calm student seemed to be in a good mood at this time, Suzuki bit the straw in his mouth a few times and looked surprised. "So you can be happy sometimes?" Hearing his teacher's words, Yushin quickly put away the smile on the corner of his mouth and put on his usual squinting smile again. Okay, put away your hypocritical expression. It makes me feel creepy." Yushin turned around and said to Suzuki gently, "No, at least my classmates say I'm very gentle. That's because they have little experience and are easy to deceive. Look, now adults see your expression and they are not scared. Even the third generation refused to accept you as a disciple because of your expression." Teacher Suzuki said unhappily, "Alas, it seems that my acting skills are still not good enough." In order to leave a good impression on the people around him, Yushin has been trying hard to learn a Chijin Maru smile. But now it seems that by doing this, everyone will be more defensive against me and can only deceive those classmates who are not very experienced in the world. But Yushin didn't plan to change this. Otherwise, if he changed it now, wouldn't it just prove that he was not sincere before? After rushing for a while, Yushin suddenly asked Suzuki a question. "Teacher Suzuki, why didn't you tell Akano and Kiko the truth just now? Aren't you afraid that they will resent you in their hearts if you go on like this?" Tell them what?" Suzuki stopped and asked with a puzzled look on his face. "Don't play dumb. You also encountered the enemy just now, right? The enemy's strength should not be weak, otherwise with the strength of Teacher Suzuki, he would not have no time to clean up the marks on his body." Crap. Who knows? But you are really not cute, little kid. Seeing that the lie was exposed, Suzuki didn't care. He knew it was difficult to hide it from the mature and unreal student in front of him. Seeing that Suzuki didn't intend to clarify, Yushin seemed to justify his behavior. "So each of us must prepare a mask for ourselves, because we have to face too many lies every day. Lies, illusions, deceptions, etc. It is easy to die if they are too real." After hearing Yushin's words, Suzuki was silent. When they arrived at the entrance of the village, they didn't come back to their senses. It was not until they needed to register that they muttered in a low voice, "That's fine." After returning to Konoha as the team leader, Suzuki first had to report the mission to the Hokage. This left Yuta and the others with nothing to do. After making an appointment with Suzuki, the three went to the barbecue restaurant to wait for him. "Hey, Yuta, did you just get back from the mission?" When they arrived at the door of the barbecue restaurant, before they entered, the three heard someone behind them asking them a question. Looking back, they found out that it was Jiraiya, Orochimaru and Tsunade. Seeing how they were running over in a hurry, were they also going to have a meal at the barbecue restaurant? Jiraiya and the other two ran over and stopped in front of them, holding their knees and taking a few breaths. Seeing how hurried they were, Kiko kindly said, "You don't have to be so anxious to eat." Jiraiya and the other two had a flash of embarrassment on their faces when they heard it, and then Orochimaru stood behind Jiraiya and Tsunade with a helpless look on his face, winking at Yuta and the others. "Yes, Jiraiya, we did go out of the village this time, and we killed people." Akano boasted to his friends before Yuta answered, not noticing Orochimaru's abnormality at all. Damn old Sandame. He said we were too young and wouldn't let us go out of the village. Otherwise I would have killed many people." Tsunade was envious after hearing Akano's boasting, and the embarrassment on her face disappeared, and she said unhappily. However, she directly put the blame for not being able to go out of the village on the Sandaime. Sandaime, before Danzo took the blame for me, I had already started to take the blame. Danzo, how can it be the same? Several people entered the barbecue restaurant in a noisy manner. Orochimaru hesitated outside for a while, and followed in with gritted teeth. Utame noticed his abnormality and cast a questioning look at him. Orochimaru just smiled awkwardly at him and said nothing. After everyone sat down, they didn't discuss who would pay the bill later. Everyone ordered a plate of meat and started eating generously. It seems like there's no hope of getting that One Piece fanfiction signed. I'll find time to open a new one, to avoid wasting time applying for it later. Chapter 2 Let's pay the debt with Tsunade. At this time in the Hokage's office, after listening to Suzuki's mission report, the newly appointed Sandaime took off his bamboo hat, rubbed his forehead, picked up his pipe, and took a deep puff to relieve his fatigue. I didn't expect that just after the First Ninja World War, the Iwagakure village couldn't sit still so soon, and has begun to extend its hands to the vicinity of the village. Suzuki, you have worked hard on this mission. Since the bandits eliminated this time are the secret forces of the Iwagakure village, and you have encountered the Jonin of the Iwagakure village, then I will upgrade your mission to A level. After a moment of silence, the Sandaime took another deep puff of the cigarette. How has Yuta performed recently? Hearing the Sandaime asking about Yuta's situation, Suzuki replied solemnly, he is thoughtful and decisive, and his strength can have been promoted to Chunin long ago. Hearing Suzuki's description, the Sandaime had guessed that Yuta hadn't changed at all, and could only sigh helplessly, as expected. He is still very wary of everyone. It seems that the sacrifice of Misan and Shia has dealt a great blow to this child, and Orochimaru is in a similar situation. I hope you can take care of this child more, and hope that he can recover. Hokage, in fact, Yushin is already very good. The third generation said HMM without comment. He said to Suzuki, okay, go down and have a rest. I will arrange someone to send you the mission reward. Suzuki looked at the third generation who started to process documents again, opened his mouth, and finally said nothing. After leaving the Hokage building, Suzuki looked at the Hokage rock shining brightly under the setting sun in the sky, and murmured to the first generation's head, the will of fire. Then he shook his head and smiled, and returned to his usual cynical expression. It seems that it is just like what Yushin said, everyone has a mask, and I'm no exception. After saying that, he put his hands in his pockets, greeted the acquaintances he met, and slowly walked towards home. At this time, the barbecue restaurant. The 6 people of Yuda stared at the pile of plates on the table. Hey, you really didn't bring any money? Jiraiya leaned on the table with both hands, looking at Kiko who was bowing her head at this time with an expression of I don't believe it. Tsunade and Orochimaru also stared at the 3 people of Yuda with disbelief. Hey, you came up and dragged us into the store. We thought you had money. Who knew you were going to eat with us? We had Suzuki teacher to treat us. The attitude of Tsunade and the other 2 made Akano unable to sit still. He thought they thought he was going to eat a free meal. His red hair seemed to be on fire. He slapped the table with both hands and immediately refuted them. Yeah, we made an appointment with Suzuki teacher. This time it was him. Oh, Suzuki teacher didn't come? Akano, we seem to have forgotten Suzuki teacher. Oh. Looking at the 5 people who were dejected, Yuda also sighed. There was nothing he could do. There were 6 people at the scene. 5 of them were poor ghosts, and the only rich woman left was a gambler. Speaking of which, Suzuki-senpai wouldn't stand you up, would he? Impossible. Suzuki-sensei has always been very reliable. After hearing Tsunade's words, Kiko subconsciously refuted, but her voice became weaker and weaker when she thought of Suzuki-sensei's behavior after the 3 of them completed the task today. No way. Suzuki-sensei wouldn't really stand you up, would he? Jiraiya couldn't help but shout loudly when he saw Kiko's expression. Maybe, probably. Akano was not sure at this time and sat back in his seat, thinking, Suzuki-sensei wouldn't really stand you up, would he? The 6 people looked at each other with no interest and quickly lowered their heads and pretended to be dead. Speaking of which, this is not a solution. The barbecue restaurant will be closed soon, and if we don't pay the bill, the boss will think we are eating free meals. Jiraiya broke the idea of everyone pretending to be dead and said to everyone with a horrified face. The others shuddered as well. Tsunade looked up and glared at him helplessly. So what do you say we should do? After Jiraiya was glared at by Tsunade, he waved his hands repeatedly when he heard her question. What can I do? Among the 6 of us, Yuta and Orochimaru usually have the most ideas. They may have some ideas. After hearing Jiraiya's words, the other 3 stared at Yuta and Orochimaru, who had been silent, with expectant expressions on their faces. Seeing that Jiraiya was throwing the blame on himself, Orochimaru shook his head embarrassedly, saying that he couldn't do anything. Then everyone stared at Yuta, who was their last hope. Looking at the expectant eyes of the crowd, Yuta squinted his eyes and thought for a while. It's not that there is no way, but the specific operation needs to be discussed again. Hurry up. Believe it or not, I will beat you. I know that you are the most reliable, Yuta. The other 3 asked impatiently. Only Kiko continued to look at Yuta with admiration. Orochimaru looked at Yuta thoughtfully, and then glanced at Tsunade. Seeing Yushin nodded slightly, Orochimaru took a deep breath with a hiss. This squinty-eyed man in front of him is so vicious. He can think of such a cruel idea. However, he didn't say anything when he knew Yushin's plan. After all, this was the only way they could think of. Seeing the 3 people's impatient looks, Yuya motioned them to get closer. The 6 little ghosts leaned their heads together and whispered for a while, and suddenly Tsunade stood up and shouted, "No, absolutely not." At this time, Jiraiya and Akano were also stunned by Yushin's idea, and Kiko looked at Yushin with her mouth wide open in disbelief. Seeing that Tsunade disagreed, Yushin spread his hands. This is the only way I can think of. If it doesn't work, then I can't do anything. Then everyone will stay together to wash the dishes and pay off the debt. Seeing that the closing time of the barbecue restaurant was getting closer, everyone turned their eyes to Tsunade, who had been lowering her head. Seeing the eager eyes of several people, he clenched his fists, shook them in front of them, and threatened, "Don't even think about it. If I do that, will I still have face? What else can we do? We can't all stay to wash the dishes, right? At most, the cost of this barbecue will be shared by the 5 of us, and it will be considered as compensation for you." Seeing that the sky was getting darker, Jiraiya forgot Tsunade's fear and quickly persuaded her. After speaking, he glanced at the others. Seeing that the others nodded repeatedly, indicating their agreement, Tsunade loosened her fists and struggled for a while. "It's a deal. If you dare to cheat me, I will definitely beat you one by one." After that, Tsunade held her head high, escorted by everyone's expectant eyes, and walked to the counter with a generous expression. "Boss, do you know who I am?" Looking at the boss who was counting the bills behind the counter, Tsunade asked loudly. The boss who was counting the bills heard the voice and raised his plump head. As a member of the Akimichi clan, of course he knew Tsunade's identity. Looking at Tsunade, who looked like she was asking for trouble, the boss narrowed his eyes and asked gently, "Princess Tsunade, what's up? Do you want to pay?" After hearing the boss's question, Tsunade's momentum instantly dissipated by more than half. After all, it was embarrassing to have no money to pay the bill. However, she still continued to say, "Since you know my identity, can we keep the bill first, if we forgot to bring money this time? Don't worry, with my identity, I can't owe you this little money." As if she was afraid that the boss would not agree, Tsunade promised again. "No. Our rule is that no one can owe you money." The barbecue restaurant owner said the most heartless words in a gentle tone. Squinty eyes are really not good people. Although she had expected it, Tsunade still cursed in her heart, and also cursed Yuta who came up with this idea. It seems that she can only use this last trick. Tsunade no longer had the passionate spirit she had just now. She walked weakly to the counter and whispered to the boss, "Can you pawn me here first? Let them go back to get the money, and then redeem me after that." The fat boss was so angry after hearing Tsunade's words that his eyes almost fell out. Chapter 3 Mysterious Beads. Just when Tsunade was about to use the soles of her feet to dig a hole in the floor of the barbecue restaurant, Suzuki finally remembered that he had to treat 3 lovely disciples to barbecue, and hurried over to pay the money and redeemed the 6 careless little ghosts. Seeing Tsunede's thoughtful look when she said goodbye, Yushin silently mourned for Shizune in the future for 3 minutes. Returning to his cabin on the edge of the village, Yushin couldn't wait to close the door and sat quietly on the bed without turning on the lights. At this time, he stared at the bead emitting dim light in his mind. Yushin is not a native resident of the Naruto world. 3 years ago, an accident occurred, and he traveled to this child who was heartbroken because of his parents' sacrifice, and died on a quiet night. When Yushin received the original owner's memory, he found that he had traveled to the Naruto world. This is an animation that he is very familiar with, knowing that in this world, if you have no relationship with the Otsutsuki family, you can only be cannon fodder in the end. Finding that the original owner is just an ordinary person, Yushin planned to hide. Moreover, his parents died while carrying out a mission with Uchiha Kagami, and Kagami also died. The cause of his parents' death was terrifying. After all, no matter how hard he tried, his final limit was only the strength of the third Raikage. And because of his parents, the more outstanding they were, the faster they might die. But in the last semester of the ninja school, after his strength barely reached the level of genin, a strange bead appeared in his mind. After some exploration, he finally roughly figured out the function of this bead. There are only 2 functions. The first is that the bead constantly emits a faint light, which continuously improves Yuta's physique. Of course, it will not turn him into the bloodline of Otsutsuki, but will only strengthen his body to the limit that ordinary people can reach at each stage, and will continue to repair the damage to his body. The second is the opportunity for enlightenment once a year. Using this opportunity, Yuta can deduce and develop the skills he has mastered to the extreme. The first enlightenment was a year ago. Yuta used that opportunity to push his 3-body technique and chakra control to the extreme, so Tsunade in the same class at that time was not his opponent. With his ever-improving physique and the instant body technique he developed, based on the teachings of his teacher Suzuki, Yushin has made great progress in this year. Although he has not yet learned any attribute ninjutsu, with his own strength, ordinary Chunin is not his opponent. Today is the second opportunity for enlightenment. Yushin plans to deduce the Rasengan. As an agile ninja, this instant ninjutsu is very suitable for him now. So Yushin sat cross-legged on the bed with a faint glow. Early the next morning, Yushin opened his eyes and showed a surprised expression on his face. The enlightenment of the night not only deduced the Rasengan, but also pushed his instant body technique and strange strength to the extreme that he could achieve at this stage. Yushin excitedly ran to an unmanned training ground. After experimenting with his new ability, he looked at the messy field and nodded with satisfaction. Then he returned to a smiling look and went home to prepare breakfast. Yushin, where have you been so early in the morning? This is the reward for this mission. Teacher Suzuki asked me to bring it to you. When he arrived at the door, he found Akano waiting for him there. I bought some vegetables to make breakfast. Have you eaten? Do you want to join us? Yushin picked up the vegetables he had just bought and showed them to Akano and asked with a smile. Great. I'm just hungry. Sorry to bother you, Yushin. Hearing that Yushin was going to treat him to breakfast, Akano was not polite at all and happily agreed. After arriving at Yushin's house, Akano poured himself a cup of hot water in a familiar manner and then sat on a chair and looked around. Yushin entered the kitchen and began to make breakfast in an orderly manner. After the 2 of them were full, they went to the street to eat together. Looking at the ninja school students running by, Akano couldn't help but sigh. It's so fast. In a blink of an eye, we have graduated for almost a year. Yes, I really miss the days when I went to school. Yushin also showed a trace of nostalgia. Thinking back to when I had just crossed over, I was full of hesitation about the future. It was at that time that the weak little girls Izzy always supported and encouraged me. Otherwise, I didn't know when I could open the mysterious bead. Yushin, come with me quickly. Tsunade's grandmother wants to see you. Just as the 2 were expressing their feelings, Jiraiya suddenly ran over from a distance. He pulled Yushin's hand without saying anything and ran towards the clanland of the Senju family, leaving Akano still there, looking confused. No. My friends and I are reminiscing about our youth. How come my friends were kidnapped in the blink of an eye? When the two ran to Tsunade's house panting, they saw a red-haired girl in the yard, smiling and apologizing to a fat middle-aged man, and the man waved his hand in fear to refuse. A woman was holding a little radish head crying like a pear blossom in the rain, and Tsunade was kneeling in the corner with an unconvinced look on her face, mumbling something in her mouth. At this moment, Orochimaru was standing in the corner without saying a word. Yuda was confused by the scene in front of him. He walked to the corner with Jiraiya and whispered to Orochimaru, "What's going on?" Tsunade, who was kneeling on the ground, had her eyes lit up when she saw Yuda. She was about to say something, but was glared at by the red-haired girl, and was scared to hold back her words. Jiraiya didn't dare to make a fuss at this time, and stood quietly in the corner with Orochimaru. After sending the middle-aged man away, the red-haired girl walked towards their corner. "Hello, Mito Grandma." Orochimaru and Jiraiya greeted her obediently. "Mito, Grandma?" Yuda didn't react for a while, and greeted with Orochimaru and the others. After reacting, he looked at the approaching red-haired girl with a surprised face. It turned out that this was the first generation of the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, the wife of the first generation of Hokage, Uzumaki Mito. She is still very young now. "Little guy, you seem to know me." Seeing Yushin's expression, Mito knew that the smiling kid in front of him knew him. He used the Nine-Tails chakra to sense it, and found that the kid had no ill intentions, so he asked directly, "Of course. Who doesn't know the famous Mito-sama?" Yushin quickly regained his composure and replied respectfully, "You know that's not what I meant. Forget it." Mito also realized that what he was going to say next might be inappropriate, so he stopped talking directly. "Then let's talk about you instigating Tsunade to use other people's children to pay off debts." Mito was already furious at this time. His granddaughter lost all her money in gambling, and she actually used her own clan's children to pay off debts. "What? Please explain clearly, Mito-sama. What did I instigate Tsunade to do?" Yushin was confused by the question for a while, and his brain couldn't turn around, so he blurted out a question. 3 chapters will be released together, and 1 chapter will be updated every day starting tomorrow. First, the One Piece fanfiction will reach 100,000 words. If it still can't be signed, it will be cut directly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 4, Exchange of Ninjutsu. After listening to Jiraiya's explanation, Yushin was also stunned by Tsunade's bold move. It turned out that, after returning home yesterday, Tsunade had been thinking that, since the barbecue restaurant had no money, and could use herself as collateral, then could the casino also do the same. Although the barbecue restaurant failed to mortgage herself, it was because she was too famous. She just needed to find someone who was not so famous. In order to verify her idea, she used 2 pieces of candy to trick a child of her own clan into the casino early the next morning. Everyone knows what happened afterwards. As soon as Tsunade left, the casino owner immediately came with the mortgaged child. In fact, the casino owner was also very entangled, but he still gritted his teeth and sent the child back to the Senju family. This game can be regarded as Tsunade's victory. Tsunade, a little devil. Casino, can't afford it? I heard that it was you who gave them the idea to mortgage Tsunade last night. Looking at the kind girl in front of him, Yushin felt a chill down his spine for some reason. Mito-sama, listen to me. No, please listen to my explanation. Mito's expression did not change, and he still looked at Yushin with a smile. Yushin finally understood how Suzuki teacher felt when he looked at him. Too creepy. Mito-sama, think about it. There were 6 of us at that time, except Tsunade. The boss knew who we were, so Yushin tried to act a little more honest. Jiraiya and Orochimaru on the side also nodded quickly. It was not that they were disloyal, but that the boss did not recognize them. But this could not hide from Mito's sharp eyes. Then this is not a reason for you to use my granddaughter to pay off the debt. Didn't it fail in the end? Jiraiya couldn't help but quibble. Bang! A figure flashed by, and Jiraiya was punched outside the wall. Yushin and Orochimaru's eyes couldn't help but shrink. So fast. The two were so scared that they broke out in cold sweats, their faces turned pale, and they dared not say another word. HMPH. Forget it this time, but if you dare to target little Tsunade again, you won't get away with it so easily. Hey. Yuta and Orochimaru bowed deeply to promise. Alright. Go out and play. Mito waved his hand and told them to go away, then turned back to the house. The woman holding the child beside him also looked at Yuta curiously, and when she saw Yuta's narrowed eyes sweeping over, she hurriedly ran away like a frightened rabbit. Mito-sama, how is it? Does the child hate the village? In the room, after seeing Mito come in, Sarutobi Hiruzen hurriedly asked respectfully. It's a good child. You're just too suspicious. The child has never resented the village. He just sealed his heart. Alas. He's also a pitiful person. Mito didn't even look at the Sandaime standing beside him. He walked straight to the tatami, knelt down, picked up the teacup, and took a sip. Okay, if you have nothing else to do, just go first. Be nice to that kid next time. Okay, I got it. I'll be busy now, and won't bother you anymore. Sarutobi Hiruzen said, grabbed the bamboo hat on the table, and left the room. Looking at the empty room, Mito couldn't help but sigh. At the third training ground, Tsunade and the others were staring at the smiling Yuta in amazement, pointing to the messy field not far away, and said in surprise, amazing. Yuta, how did you do it? Yuta said casually, recently, through research, I found that, as long as you can control the burst of chakra, you can instantly generate huge destructive power. So as long as the chakra is well controlled, you can cause huge damage to the enemy at the moment of attacking the enemy. Although I don't understand, it's amazing. Jiraiya was confused, while Tsunade and Orochimaru on the side stared at the field that Yuta had just demonstrated for a while with a thoughtful look on their faces. Finally, Orochimaru shook his head and said, that requires extremely strong chakra control ability, which I can't do now. But Tsunade can try. Tsunade also stared at Yushin with shining eyes. But it seems that Yushin has no intention of explaining in detail, and still looks at the three people with a smile. Hey, Yushin, you can't be disloyal. Looking at Yushin who didn't speak, Jiraiya couldn't help but say. Jiraiya, don't talk nonsense. Yushin's situation is different from ours. He still hasn't mastered a single attribute ninjutsu, so Yushin is planning to exchange with Tsunade, right? No way. It's been almost a year since graduation, and senior Suzuki hasn't taught them a single ninjutsu. Jiraiya looked at Yushin in disbelief when he heard what Orochimaru said. Seeing that he was still looking at Tsunade with a smile, he knew that what Orochimaru said was true. What do you want? But let's make it clear in advance. Don't mention forbidden techniques. I don't know how to do it even if you ask. As a student of the third generation and the heir of the Senju clan, Tsunade knew the situation of Yushin and the others. Because of Yuta's sudden change 3 years ago, the third Hokage had not allowed Suzuki to teach Yuta any ninjutsu, so Tsunade did not dare to exchange powerful ninjutsu with Yuta. But Tsunade felt that the ninjutsu that Yuta showed just now was too suitable for her, and she couldn't bear to give it up, so she asked directly. I won't make it difficult for you. My ninjutsu is instant, and its power will increase as your strength increases. So I'll exchange it for the 2 ninjutsu of Hemastasis and Palm Magic. Is it not too much? Hey, Yuta, do you want to think about it again? It's too bad for you to exchange it like this. Yuta ignored Jiraiya and narrowed his eyes at Tsunade. Okay, deal. Seeing Yuta's determined expression, Tsunade did not hesitate, and directly took out 2 ninjutsu scrolls from the ninja tool bag, and threw them to Yuta. Because Yuta had only derived the strange power technique today, he had not had time to write it on the ninjutsu scroll. So after Yushin took the scroll, he said to Tsunade with an embarrassed look, I don't have money to buy a scroll, so why don't we exchange it tomorrow? TSK. I can't do anything about you. Tsunade took out another blank scroll from the ninja tool bag and threw it to Yushin. Write it now. Tsunade felt that, as long as she learned the technique invented by Yushin, her strength would definitely increase a lot, so she couldn't wait to urge Yushin. After completing the transaction with Tsunade, both parties agreed that the exchanged ninjutsu could be freely used, so Yushin taught the 2 ninjutsu to Zizi as soon as possible. Seeing Suzuki seriously fighting with the fish at this time, ignoring the envious eyes of Akano on the side, Yushin went directly to find Mr. Suzuki, who was slacking off on the side, intending to test his own strength. "Oh, are you sure you want me to go all out?" Suzuki asked in surprise after hearing Yushin's request. Seeing Yushin looking at him with a smile on his face, Suzuki was furious. "Damn it, I'll beat you so hard that you can't even laugh anymore. Collect, read, invest, hand it all in." Chapter 5, Fighting Suzuki. Seeing that Yushin was going to spar with Suzuki, Akano also stood not far away and watched curiously. "Damn, does Yushin look down on us?" Akano looked at the two people standing not far away and said unwillingly, "Don't worry, Yushin will never give up on us." Suzuki came behind Akano at some point and comforted him after hearing his words. "Besides, Suzuki teacher also cares about us, but he hasn't taught us a ninjutsu yet," Akano retorted after hearing Suzuki's words. "Maybe Suzuki teacher has some plans?" After saying that, he looked at the two people fighting intently. Not bad. At this time, Yushin and Suzuki held Kunai together, and neither of them could do anything to the other. The first test was evenly matched. After a stalemate, the two retreated a distance and started the second round of competition. After the test just now, Suzuki did not dare to underestimate Yushin. Just from the collision just now, it can be seen that Yushin's strength and reaction speed are better than his. Yuda dodged and kicked Suzuki. Suzuki dodged in an instant, and with a swoosh, he dodged the kick and fired a fireball behind Yuda. Under the endless flames, Suzuki dodged quickly as he watched Yuda being hit. "You're so alert, Teacher Suzuki." Yuta's hit figure was replaced by a piece of wood with a pop. Yuta appeared where Suzuki had just stood with a kunai in his hand. "If I hadn't been careful, I would have died on the battlefield. Kid, you still have a lot to learn." Suzuki quickly formed seals with both hands and fired a great fireball technique at Yuta. But Yuta's figure had long disappeared, so the ninjutsu naturally missed. "Although I expected it, it's really disgusting to fight you." Seeing that his attack missed, Suzuki drew out his shuriken and swung it towards his right side. Ding. Yuta's figure suddenly appeared, and the two kunai collided. Then he stepped back sharply, creating a certain distance between himself and the opponent. Suzuki stared at his student solemnly and couldn't help but sigh at Yuta's talent. Fortunately, the third Hokage finally agreed to let me teach Yuta and the others ninjutsu. Thinking of the sudden summons of the Hokage a few days ago, he thought he had done something wrong recently. Fortunately, the Hokage only asked about Yuta's situation briefly and told him that he could train their team as an ordinary team. Although he didn't know why the Hokage suddenly lifted the ban on Yuta, it must have something to do with the third Hokage's visit to the Senju clan. He could finally breathe a sigh of relief and no longer have to worry about his student suddenly defecting from Konoha one day because of resentment. "Next, Yuta, you have to be careful." "I will do my best, teacher." Suzuki planned to take this opportunity to test Yuta's background, so as to plan how to teach this talented student. I couldn't ask for more. Yuta didn't expect to learn other ninjutsu in Konoha, and this competition was just to verify his current strength. Fire style, great fire dragon technique. Suzuki immediately used a large-scale ninjutsu on Yuda, hoping to limit Yuda's speed. But Yuda faced the oncoming ninjutsu and went straight for it. Just when Suzuki and the other two were worried, Yuda suddenly stretched out his right hand, and a huge chakra ball spun and hit the equally huge fire dragon. Big ball Rasengan. Boom. With a loud noise, the training ground shook violently, and then a huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. What's going on? The Enbu quickly went to the fourth training ground to investigate the situation. If you find any suspicious people, quickly control them. If they resist, eliminate them on the spot. The huge movement also alarmed several Konoha high-level officials who were meeting in the Hokage building. Sarutobi Hirozen immediately ordered the Enbu to investigate. After a series of orders were issued, the Enbu quickly sent people to the fourth training ground. Masked ninjas kept shuttling in the village and disappeared at the edge of the village in a blink of an eye. Seeing that the Enbu had gone to deal with it, Sarutobi Hirozen returned to his seat. A middle-aged man with short hair sitting nearby suddenly said, "Now that the war has just ended, we should resolutely eliminate all enemies with bad intentions to deter other villages." Sarutobi, you are too weak to even plan to capture him alive. Sarutobi Hiruzen and his group of high-level officials had just come to power, and their foundation was not yet solid, not enough to fight against the old families of Konoha, so they could only huddle together for warmth, and their relationship was relatively harmonious now. Seeing someone questioning his orders, Sarutobi could only patiently explain, Danzo, it is precisely because the war has just ended that everyone has developed a disgust for war, so we should try to avoid unnecessary disputes now. After all, the village can no longer withstand a war. Humph. Seeing that Sarutobi did not support his point of view, Danzo just snorted coldly. After all, the route had not yet been established, and Danzo did not have the strength to go against Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Hokage. The other two consultants saw that the atmosphere was a bit awkward, and they also tried to smooth things over. Swoosh. Suddenly an Anbu appeared in the Hokage's office and knelt on one knee. Hokage, the situation that caused the huge commotion at the 4th training ground has been investigated. It was an accident caused by the training of the second-class Suzuki team. The relevant personnel have been taken outside. Please give instructions, Hokage. Oh. Bring them in. I want to ask what kind of training can cause such a big commotion? The Enbu who came to report did not believe it at first, but thinking of the huge pit at the scene, he could only report it like this. Facing the curious eyes of the 4 people in the office, Suzuki apologized directly as soon as he came in. Hokage, I was negligent and accidentally caused huge losses to the village when I was experimenting with new ninjutsu. Please punish me, Hokage. Nonsense. I remember that Suzuki Jonin is not qualified to learn forbidden techniques. How could it cause such a big commotion? It seems that Suzuki Jonin intends to protect the enemy who destroyed the village? Before Sarutobi Hiruzen could speak, Danzo, who was sitting next to him, asked first. Suzuki was Sarutobi Hiruzen's confidant, and Sarutobi Hiruzen naturally knew that he would not protect the enemy. So Sarutobi Hiruzen advised Danzo, Danzo, Suzuki Jonin is an excellent Konoha ninja. Please do not doubt his loyalty to Konoha. So this is Danzo. He looked quite handsome when he was young. Looking at the middle-aged man who had just questioned, Yuta couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Humph. Hearing Sarutobi defending Suzuki like this, Danzo knew that he was Sarutobi's man, and could only hum again. Suzuki, I have always believed in you. Tell me what the situation is. Seeing Suzuki's hesitation, Sarutobi Hiruzen also realized that the situation might not be suitable for too many people to know. So he said to the other senior executives, I will carefully consider the situation you raised. We will talk about the specifics tomorrow. Seeing Sarutobi Hiruzen driving people away, Mito Enman and Yuta Koharu tactfully said hello and went out directly. Danzo was already a little dissatisfied with Sarutobi for hiding the truth from him, not to mention that the purpose of his visit this time has not been achieved yet. Let's go to the list first. Everyone give your support. Chapter 6 Escort Mission. Knowing that Danzo was still determined to form his own armed forces, Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned. You go out first. We'll talk tomorrow if there's anything. Seeing that Sarutobi was getting impatient, Danzo couldn't stand up to him, otherwise his plan would be ruined. He glared at Suzuki fiercely and turned around and left. What a weird thing. Seeing Danzo showing off to Suzuki, Yuta couldn't help but sigh in his heart that Danzo really wasn't up to the standard. Seeing that there were only a few of them left in the office, Sarutobi took a deep puff of his pipe, and the smoke enveloped his face, making it impossible to guess what he was thinking at the moment. Hokage-sama, just now. Then Suzuki roughly recounted the process of his sparring with Yuta. When Sarutobi heard that the noise just now was caused by a clash of ninjutsu between Suzuki and Yuta, he was also surprised. Tell me in detail. Sarutobi was very curious about the ninjutsu used by Yuta, thinking that it was recently developed by Suzuki and taught to Yuta. I'm not sure either. This is the first time I've seen Yuta use this ninjutsu. Yuta, explain it in detail to Hokage-sama. Oh. It seems that you don't know your own students either. Suzuki, you are too incompetent as a teacher. Sarutobi pretended to scold Suzuki for a few words, and then turned his gaze to Yuta on the side. Looking at the silver-haired, smiling boy in front of him, the third generation showed a kind smile. Yuta, is this the first time we meet? Yuta replied respectfully with a smile. Hokage-sama, this is the second time. The last time was when Hokage-sama went to school to choose an apprentice. Today is the second time. How can people respond to this? Although everyone present knew what was going on, you can't say it to their face. Sarutobi smiled awkwardly. At this time, he had not yet practiced to the level of being able to remain calm even when facing a collapse in front of him, so he could only change the subject stiffly. I heard that you and Tsunade exchanged some ninjutsu a few days ago. How come your teacher Suzuki didn't teach you ninjutsu? Suzuki was so anxious that he tried to wink at Yushin, hoping that he would continue to follow the words of the Hokage and stop making trouble for the Hokage. But unfortunately, he could only wink at the blind man. Yushin couldn't help but be surprised and said, "Didn't you, the Hokage, order that no one should teach me ninjutsu? How could the Hokage give such an order? I have other plans for not teaching you ninjutsu. I want you to lay a solid foundation now. Now it's almost done. I will teach you ninjutsu in a few days." Apologize to the Hokage quickly. Suzuki saw that Sarutobi was choked by Yushin twice and coughed, and he quickly scolded Yushin. "Oh. It seems that I misunderstood the Hokage. I'm sorry." Yushin bowed deeply to Sarutobi. Ahem. Sarutobi coughed twice, not knowing whether it was due to dryness or smoke. Then he changed to a gentle tone and said, "It's okay. We can see you excellent juniors in our generation. What's a little grievance?" Yuta said apologetically. "Thank you, Hokage. Otherwise, I would feel uneasy if my misunderstanding affected your mood." Suzuki looked at the scene in front of him, lowered his head deeply, and kept roaring in his heart, "I have never seen such a shameless person, and there are two of them." Finally, after a verbal confrontation, Yuta handed over the Rasengan to the village, and he could choose any ninjutsu in return. "Why did you choose that ninjutsu? I thought you would choose the forbidden jutsu on the ceiling scroll." "I'm not that depressed. If I choose the ninjutsu on the ceiling scroll, I believe the third Hokage will find all kinds of excuses to shirk and get nothing in the end." "No way. Didn't the Hokage allow you to learn ninjutsu?" "Alas. There is still not enough trust between people." Listening to the reasons given by Yushin, Suzuki also agreed. The squinty-eyed man in front of him has never trusted anyone. Oh, except Kiko. 3 months have passed since the sparring with Suzuki, and it's time to graduate from the ninja school again. The training ground is full of prospective graduates who are cramming. "Gather. I just received a new mission to escort a batch of supplies to the border of the land of grass. Get ready now and gather at the gate at 10 o'clock. On this day, Yushin and Akano were training at the 4th training ground, and teacher Suzuki suddenly came over to inform them. "Damn it, I haven't mastered the new ninjutsu yet. How come I have a mission so soon?" Ever since Suzuki taught them ninjutsu, Yuta and the other 3 have come here to train whenever they have time. However, Akano's foundation is not good, and he has not yet learned the seal level ninjutsu, while Kiko and Yuta can already fight with the ninjutsu taught by Suzuki. Are those the seniors who graduated last year? So handsome. The younger students in the training ground looked at Yuta and the others with envy and talked excitedly. When Yuta arrived at the gate of Konoha, Suzuki and the others had not arrived yet. He registered with the guard first and then waited for Suzuki and the others to arrive. About 10 minutes later, Suzuki and the others finally arrived at the gate. However, they were not the only 3 of them, and there was a team of carriages around them. The drivers were all ordinary villagers, which was also the norm for daily transportation of supplies. After all, ninjas were relatively rare, and it was impossible to use them in daily transportation of supplies. Just send someone to escort them. Because the war has just ended, the supply team will rarely be attacked by ninjas, and fighting is almost impossible. "We just need to be careful of bandits on the road," Zizi whispered. "In theory, this is true." Suzuki adjusted his forehead protector. "If we are lucky, we can reach the border smoothly, but if we are unlucky, we will be attacked by a small group of rebel ninjas. The mission level may be upgraded to B-level at any time. To be honest, considering the strength of Suzuki and Yuda, this is indeed a training mission. Teacher Suzuki is an elite jonin and almost the top fighter under the 3rd generation. It is impossible for him to spend too much time monitoring me. I'm afraid that Suzuki will be transferred soon. Yuda glanced at teacher Suzuki, who seemed to take nothing to heart, and analyzed secretly in his heart. Soon, the group of 4 set off, followed by a supply team. The team responsible for protecting us will definitely not have strong people. We are just a small supply team. In the team, a young man was muttering, but when he saw Suzuki, he was shocked. Suzuki-sama? This is actually the rookie team led by you to protect us? Yes, so can we set off? Suzuki spoke directly. Along the way, everyone kept their mouths tightly shut. They were nervous, but looked at Suzuki from time to time, feeling a little relieved. Suzuki, who had the most seniority, was too lazy to speak, and naturally it was impossible for him to speak. Yushin took the initiative to communicate with other people in the supply team, and finally confirmed that he was actually very familiar with the captain of the team. Minato Namikaze's father died in the future. Did it fail again? Chapter 7 Attack. Soon, everyone left Konoha village, crossed several small towns, and quickly shuttled towards the border of the Land of Fire. The closer they got to the border, the more cautious and vigilant they became. The withered people's livelihood, the desolate wilderness, and the corpses everywhere. This is war, especially the war between ninjas. The attack of a powerful ninja can easily destroy a small town. The border post is ahead. It is very close to the Land of Grass. There is a border between the 2 countries. The hidden grass village itself is a snake and a rat. However, our actions along the way are very secretive, and generally will not attract their attention. Yushin, what's wrong? Akano saw Yushin's face suddenly change, a little strange. Nothing. Yushin smiled. He suddenly felt that someone was secretly spying on him. After a long period of transformation by the mysterious beads, his spirit was very strong. The feeling of spying just now was fleeting, but he still sensed it. At this time, Suzuki also slowed down and slowly approached the material convoy. Seeing this, Yushin winked at Akano, his eyes swaying left and right. Akano reacted immediately, his eyes slightly changed, but he didn't find anything unusual. By the way, Namikaze-senpai, why did you become the logistics team leader? Yuda was talking to Minato's father, as if nothing had happened. He scratched his cheek with his left hand, and his right hand seemed to be casually placed on the palm of his left hand. Then, his right hand quickly drew a circle on the palm of his left hand, and then turned his palm over again. Minato's father immediately understood Yuda's code, which was what they had discussed before. Then he said, I'm 20 years old, and I'm about to get married and have children. Now that the war has just ended, it's safer on the road, so I came out to make more money. As he said that, Minato's father winked at the other members of the logistics team. Suzuki's voice suddenly sounded from the front. Beware. Enemy attack. Yuda pulled out the new short knife from his waist, narrowed his eyes, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Then his chakra burst out instantly, and he rushed directly to the southwest. Suzuki's movements were not slow at all, and he rushed to the north. Akano and Kiko quickly stood at both ends of the supply team, and protected the supply team behind them. At the moment when the 2 of them started to fight, the enemy finally realized that he was exposed. Yuda flashed, and swung the short sword lightly in front of him. A large amount of blood spurted out of a stone, and then he turned into a ninja lying on the ground motionless. At this moment, 3 screams with very short intervals came from the north. Yuda knew that Suzuki had also fought with the enemy. Lightning escape a ground walk. After knowing that they were exposed, the ninjas of Kusagakure village immediately launched a counterattack and quickly used ninjutsu. Several lightning bolts attacked Yuda along the ground. Seeing this, Yuda flashed his body, and silver light was scattered, leaving a pile of corpses. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the direction of the supply team. Yuda was worried about Kiko's safety, and hurriedly left the remaining enemies, and rushed to the supply truck. However, 2 Kusagakure ninjas holding ninja swords appeared on his left and right. Just as the 2 were about to attack him, Yuta quickly formed a seal, and a shadow clone appeared beside him. This was the ninjutsu that Suzuki had recently taught him. The shadow clone crossed his hands and stretched his body horizontally in the air. Yuta took advantage of the situation and used the shadow clone as a stepping stone. He kicked the shadow clone with 1 foot, and his body suddenly rose high, avoiding the joint attack of the 2 Kusagakure ninjas. At the same time, His figure flashed, and another silver light flashed, and a Kusagakure ninja fell down, holding his throat. Konoha-style swordsmanship, 3-day moon dance. 3 identical Yuta appeared and attacked another Kusagakure ninja at the same time. This was a ninjutsu that he exchanged with the 3rd generation using the Rasengan. Seeing this, the man used Earth Escape to attack Yuta at the same time. As for Konoha-style swordsmanship, he, who was also good at swordsmanship, had naturally seen it before. Since the real body will be hidden between the 3 fake bodies when using swordsmanship, just attack at the same time. The real body and the fake body attack together. But just as he was attacking the 3 clones, Yuta suddenly flashed past him from behind, and the short sword in his hand pierced his heart directly. Looking at the Kusagakure ninja in front of him who looked incredulous, Yuta gently said to him, "Sorry, I don't have time to play with you now." Then the 3 figures bang 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 turned into a puff of white smoke and dissipated. It turned out that they were all Yuta's shadow clones. Yuta drew out his short sword and immediately ran towards the supply truck. The last surviving Kusagakure ninja was filled with shock and anger. That kid is not an ordinary kid. He is obviously a new generation who just graduated not long ago, but he is so scary. If we let this guy grow up, could he be another 2nd generation Hokage? The Kusagakure ninja was helpless and furious, but unfortunately, his team was almost wiped out, and it was impossible for him to seize this great opportunity to kill the genius kid. Then he fled towards Kusagakure village without looking back, and he must bring this information back to the village. When Yuta came to the supply team, he saw Kiko and Akano working together to resist a Kusagakure ninja. There were several broken Kusagakure ninja bodies on the ground nearby. Kiko no longer had her usual soft expression. She fought with the enemy with sharp eyes. Every punch and kick was full of power. It was the strange power that Yuta taught her. At this time, Kiko thought to herself, Yuta-kun has given me so much help. I will definitely not let Yuta-kun down. Akano could only place soy sauce on the side, reminding Kiko to be careful from time to time. Yuta saw that Kiko and the others had the upper hand, so he didn't go up to help immediately. He just smiled and looked at Kiko fighting the enemy with relief. Hey, you kid, it makes people feel weird when you show such an expression. Suzuki came behind Yuta at some point and complained after seeing Yuta's expression. Yuta turned around and glanced at Suzuki, who was covered in blood. Seeing that he was not seriously injured, he turned his head and looked at the battlefield of Kiko and the others. Seeing that Yushin did not respond to his words, Suzuki lost his smile and said solemnly, "We don't have time to delay now. The border station has been breached by the Kusagakure ninjas and everyone inside is dead. We must pass the news back to the village as soon as possible so that the village can take precautions." After hearing the intelligence that Suzuki had found, Yushin no longer cared to appreciate Ziz's fight. The Kusagakure village is so brave. That's great. We can finally have a good fight. Looking at the young man in front of him, who was smiling, but still revealed excitement in his eyes, Suzuki couldn't help but sweat for the Kusagakure village. Then try to capture this Kusagakure ninja alive. We need information about the Kusagakure village. Understood. Before Suzuki finished speaking, Yushin disappeared from his sight. Bang. Looking at the enemy who suddenly collapsed in front of her, Zizi looked at Yushin in front of her with surprise, and proudly boasted to Yushin, "Yushin-kun, I can fight too. Yeah. Well done." Yushin never hesitated to praise Zizi, put the short knife back into the scabbard, and praised Zizi sincerely. "Okay, since the crisis is over, and the mission has completely failed, we will return to the village immediately, and bring back the information here. Captain Namikaze, please prepare a car for this prisoner. We still need to hand him over to the interrogation department." Now, the second squad Suzuki team, everyone is on alert and return the original route. Chapter 8: The Birth of a Family. Is that so? The Sandai looked solemn after listening to Suzuki's report. "Hirozen, you can't hesitate any longer. Kusagakure village has already provoked us. If we don't fight back, Konoha will lose its deterrence against the Land of Lightning and the Land of Earth. They might start a war again." Danzo got smarter this time and began to persuade his friend from the perspective that if he didn't fight back against Kusagakure village, it might lead to a bigger war. At this time, the Sandai was not the old and frail grandfather who would lose his ambition in the future. He was just on the stage at this time, full of ambition, and wanted to do something big. At this time, the provocation of Kusagakure village also gave him an opportunity to establish his authority. After hearing Danzo's persuasion, the Sandai put on his bamboo hat, extinguished the pipe in his hand, and sat upright with dignity. Order. Wow. Everyone in the room stood up and listened, including Danzo. At this time, he was not qualified to sit and listen to orders. Except for the necessary personnel left behind, all other members of the Anbu will serve as the main force to counterattack the Kusagakure village. Danzo, as the leader of this operation, you must teach Kusagakure a profound lesson. The third generation, who had made up his mind, did not hesitate and gave a resolute order. After hearing the appointment, Danzo could not help but smile. Konoha did not even need to prepare for war against an opponent like Kusagakure village. The Anbu could directly crush Kusagakure village to the ground. After receiving the order, Danzo acted quickly and set off directly. After joining the Anbu, the villagers did not even know that Konoha had a war with other villages. So we have nothing to do this time. I was thinking that I must show my skills this time. After hearing what Suzuki conveyed, Akano said with a disappointed face and dejected, "Bang. Stop bragging, kid. In any war, people will die. You are still far away." After hearing what Akano said, Suzuki punched him in the head. "It hurts. It hurts." Akano immediately had a big bump on his head. He pressed the big bump on his head with both hands and shouted to Suzuki with tears in his eyes, "Akano-kun, are you okay?" After seeing Akano's painful expression, Zizi ran over and asked with concern. After seeing the big bump on Akano's head, she hurriedly used the palm magic to help him deal with it. After the bump on Akano's head subsided, Zizi stood up and wiped the sweat from her forehead and said to Suzuki with a face full of blame, "Teacher Suzuki, you were too cruel, weren't you?" At this time, Suzuki was lying on the grass beside him, with his head resting on his hands, his legs crossed, a straw in his mouth, and his eyes looking at the sky. After hearing Zizi's questioning, Dong didn't move at all, but just said leisurely, "I just gave him a profound lesson. Anyone who underestimates war is the easiest to die. Teacher Suzuki is really responsible." Yushin on the side squinted and praised him. "TSK, you are not a cute kid." Suzuki didn't care about Yushin's praise, just muttered to him in dissatisfaction, and continued to look at the sky in a trance. "Well, what about our mission this time? Although it failed, it was not our fault. The receiver was killed by the enemy, but we escorted him anyway." Hearing Akano's words, Yuta and the other two looked at Suzuki on the ground. That C-rank mission did fail, but because we brought back important information this time, the Hokage gave us an A-rank mission. Suzuki didn't keep them in suspense and said to them directly, "Great, now we finally have an A-rank mission resume, and we will be promoted to Chunin in a short time." Akano shouted excitedly, "Yes, then our second team will be disbanded." 2 months later, the Kusagakure village was destroyed. When Danzo, who lost an eye, returned to the village, he was not greeted by the heroic cheers, but the angry scolding of the third Hokage. The third Hokage originally just wanted to teach the Kusagakure village a profound lesson, but who knew that the radical Danzo was heading straight to completely destroy the Kusagakure village. When the Kusagakure village saw that Konoha was going to wipe out the roots and not give them a chance to live, they directly asked for help from the Iwagakure village. Of course, the land of earth would not sit idly by and watch Konoha occupy the land of grass, and directly sent ninjas to fight Danzo in the land of grass. In the end, the eldest and the second fought, and the third died. Konoha's Anbu also lost a lot of manpower, and finally the third generation was forced to agree to Danzo's proposal. Konoha's northern Myanmar autonomous region was established since then. Mito could naturally sense Danzo's fear of the Senju clan and agreed in his heart, so he made a deal with Yuta and exchanged his sealing technique for the Rasengan. Soon after, there were suddenly many more ninjas who mastered the Rasengan in the Senju clan, which caused Danzo to have a big fight with the third generation in the Hokage's office. Then the first scene of fame and fortune where I regretted being the Hokage was born. In the 20th year of Konoha, the Kusagakure village was destroyed for the first time. At this time, Yuta and Akano were 12 years old, and Kiko was 11 years old. Due to Danzo's reckless advance, the village's power dropped sharply, and Suzuki was no longer the instructor of Yuta and his team. Yuta was then promoted to Chunin urgently, and Kiko applied to be transferred to Konoha Hospital. Only Akano and this year's graduates formed a new genin team. 6 years passed in a blink of an eye. Since Danzo became the leader of the Anbu training class, he was basically not seen in the village. It's just that from time to time, some ninjas would disappear, and then they would disappear from then on. Although the war with Kusagakure village caused great losses to Konoha, the third generation also established its own prestige. From then on, the various families did not dare to disobey him in secret, and the older generation gradually retreated behind the scenes, and Konoha became the world of F4. 6 years later, the appearance of 18-year-old Yuta has changed a lot. He is 1.8 meters tall, slender, gentle, and elegant, and has a dark smile. Except for a head of silver hair and a pair of eyes that can't be opened, people who are not familiar with him will never think that he is the same person as 6 years ago. Yushin, good morning. Are you going to bring soup to Kiko again? But Kiko is really amazing. She gave birth to 3 sons for you. You are really enviable. Yes. I heard that the Namikaze family gave birth to a son some time ago. I envied her for a long time. I didn't expect Kiko to be even more amazing. She gave birth to 3 at once. Looking at the enthusiastic neighbors on the street, Yushin patiently greeted them one by one, and the joy emanating from her body could not be concealed. Since Kiko turned 16 last year, she and Yushin got married naturally. After the new year, she went through the leave procedures from the hospital. There was no other way. Kiko's belly was too big at that time, and Yushin and others were worried. Finally, after Tsunade confirmed that Kiko was pregnant with triplets, Kiko immediately went through the leave procedures. She just gave birth to 3 big fat boys for Yushin 2 days ago. At that time, the whole Konoha was shocked, and people came to visit one after another. After all, since the establishment of Konoha, triplets have never been seen, or even heard of. Everyone came to the Yuda family to share the good news. In addition, the Yuda couple were usually friendly and not as condescending as other ninjas. Therefore, not only the Sandai and other Konoha high-ranking officials and some familiar ninjas came, but even some businessmen who opened shops also wanted to take this opportunity to get closer to the Yuda family. In order not to affect Kiko's rest in the past 2 days, she and her child were sent directly to the Senju family, and she stayed to entertain the visiting guests. The family began to be born. Everyone's support. Chapter 9. Yuda is no longer the same as before. After finally breaking away from the enthusiastic neighbors, Yushin walked towards the Senju clan with his lunchbox. On the way, Yushin couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that I, a lonely soul, would have roots in this world. Thinking of this, Yushin couldn't help but feel proud. These 6 years have not been wasted. Compared with the past, his strength has also changed dramatically, which is also the reason why Yushin is not afraid of anything. First of all, in terms of body, Yushin himself doesn't know how abnormal his body is now. Because since he beat Might Day, who opened the 3 gates, to death with one punch 2 years ago, Yushin has never dared to exert his strength with all his strength. After all, ninjas are not about fighting and killing, but about human relationships. If the difference in strength between others and oneself is too big, one will unconsciously isolate oneself. So now everyone thinks that Yushin's strength is about the same as Hatake's Akumo, both of which are slightly weaker than the cage level, and much stronger than the elite Jonin. In terms of ninjutsu, through the enlightenment once a year in the past few years, he has pushed the ninjutsu he has mastered to the limit. With 2 opportunities for enlightenment, Yushin completely mastered the sealing technique he exchanged with Mito. Except for some forbidden techniques such as Shiki Fujin and blood ninjutsu such as Vajra Seal, Yushin's sealing technique is not much worse than Mito. However, the sealing technique is indeed difficult to learn, and it took him 2 opportunities for enlightenment. The 3rd and 4th times, after Yushin determined that his chakra attributes were wind and earth, he took this opportunity to comprehend the changes in the properties of wind and earth. After the 5th time, he directly integrated the 2 changes in properties and developed the blood limit magnetic release. And through the study of the Mizunotsuki clan, He integrated the magnetic release into his own blood. The sixth opportunity is coming soon. This time, Yushin went to the Senju clan. In addition to visiting Zizi and his 3 children, he also planned to see if he could borrow the first generation's wood release. Yushin planned to learn from the first generation's wood release and develop some ninjutsu to deal with large enemies through enlightenment. Yushin Sr., you are here. As soon as Yushin entered the door of the Senju family, our 3-year-old boy was stunned. The grey hedgehog head and the 2 rosy spots on his face, and none other than Noise, the young master of the Senju clan. He was brought back from the capital by Mito only last year, intending to let him receive further ninja education, so that he could support the Senju clan as soon as possible. The current Senju clan is different from the original. Although most of them have been integrated into the village according to the arrangement of the second generation Hokage, the ninjas who insisted on staying in the clan have improved their strength to a certain extent, because Mito and Yuta exchanged Rasengan. Some of them even completed the attribute fusion and their strength increased greatly. The Konoha Northern Myanmar Autonomous Region did not dare to come and fool people at will. Therefore, Danzo often staged the plot of I'm the Shadow, and you regret with the 3rd generation. In the end, it was Mito who called them in and warned them, and Danzo restrained himself. However, from time to time, people from the Senju clan accidentally sacrificed during missions. Although some of them were sacrificed during normal missions, there are still more than 30 families living here, and these people will need Noise's protection in the future. So during this year, when Yuta brought Kiko to Tsunade for a physical examination, he would also take the time to instruct the young master of the Senju clan. After handing the lunchbox to a servant who came over, Yuta walked directly to Noise, who was standing there in a daze. Looking at the squinty-eyed man in front of him, Noise thought of how this man had treated him in the past year, and couldn't help but shudder. He ran to his grandmother's room, and bumped into Tsunade, who came out after hearing the noise. Tsunade, who is already 16 years old, has already shown a tendency to bloom. Recently, when Jiraiya saw Tsunade, he stuck to her directly like a dung beetle seeing cow dung. Although he was beaten hard by Tsunade several times, he still didn't change his bad habits. He even ran to the bathhouse to peek at Tsunade taking a bath, and was almost beaten by Tsunade to reincarnation. You came quite early today, Tsunade said unhappily, looking at the squinty-eyed man in front of her who had given her advice and encouraged her to use herself to pay off her debts. After that, he also warned his brother who was hiding behind him, stay away from this squinty-eyed guy, don't let him lead you astray. Yeah. Thinking of the torture that this silver-haired squinty-eyed guy usually gave him, the sensible Rope Tree nodded repeatedly. What are you talking about? Don't teach Rope Tree bad things. Yuta usually teaches Rope Tree very carefully. Seeing that Tsunade hadn't returned to the house for a long time, Mito came to check on the situation. He happened to hear what Tsunade said to Rope Tree, and scolded her directly. Although Yuta was a little bit sinister, the effect of teaching Rope Tree was obvious, so he turned a blind eye to his bad taste. Grandma. Mito-sama. Mito looked at the gentle young man in front of him, nodded slightly, and said to Yuta, come and pick up Kiko and the others? Yes. Yuta nodded, then touched his head embarrassedly and explained, Kiko has troubled Mito-sama to take care of her these 2 days. Today's guests have been entertained, so I came to pick Kiko up. Then go quickly. I guess Kiko has finished her meal by now. But I'm really reluctant to leave. Your 3 children are so cute. Hearing Mito praising his children, Yuta's eyes, which were already narrowed, suddenly became completely invisible. Sensing Yuta's sincere joy at the moment, Mito said to Tsunade, you go and help Naoki, come quickly, and go back to the house with grandma. The 3 boys born to Kiko, the eldest son was named Miruta, the second son was named Jiro, and the third son was named Yuto. Because Yuta was a commoner, the 3 children took Yuta as their surname, and their full names were Yuta Miruta, Yuta Jiro, and Yuta Yuto. After hearing the name Yushin gave her child, Zizi changed her name to Yushin Zizi. Looking at the 2 children in her arms, and then turning her head to look at Zizi and the child in her arms, Yushin has never been so satisfied since she crossed into this familiar and strange world. Suddenly, Yushin's mind felt clear, and the mysterious bead also turned a few circles, and then it was still suspended in her mind, but the faint light it emitted was brighter. At this time, Yushin's spirit had undergone a huge change. Yushin's own soul had no barriers with this world. Yushin closed his eyes, and everything within 5 kilometers around him appeared clearly in his mind. Although it was black and white, the picture was very clear. Zizi, who was standing by, also felt that Yushin had changed a lot. She stared at him in confusion for a while, and when she found nothing unusual, she stopped asking. Oh no, I seem to have forgotten that I have something to discuss with Lord Mito. Looking at her husband who was slowly saying that he had forgotten something, Zizi rolled his eyes at him and walked straight home with the child in his arms. Looking at the somewhat angry Zizi, Yushin shook his head with a wry smile and said, "Forget it, let's talk about it later. Now let's send his wife and children home first." Married women are not easy to mess with, and women who have given birth to children are even harder to mess with. Chapter 10 Summary. Main characters: Yuta, the male protagonist, born in the 8th year of Konoha, the same age as Hatakes Akumo, but because of his poor qualifications in the early stage, he graduated with Tsunade and other 3 ninjas who were 2 years younger than him. Currently the head of the Yuta family. Image: silver white hair, fox-shaped face, always smiling, dark, calm, always giving people a cunning feeling. Weapons and abilities: weapon, Kodachi. Ability, chakra attribute, climate, bloodline limit, magnetic escape, ninjutsu, sealing technique, super strength, Rasengan, etc. Summoning beast, Nanad present. Summary: a dark and upright person, but full of vigilance against the top leaders of Konoha, calm and intelligent, has never been trusted by the top leaders headed by Sarutobi, strong, reaching the peak that ordinary people can reach, and can be invincible for a short time when he bursts out with all his strength. Yuta Kiko, the female protagonist, born in the 9th year of Konoha, 1 year younger than the male protagonist, graduated at the same time as the male protagonist, the wife of the protagonist. Currently has 3 sons. Currently the mistress of the Yuta family. Image: short blonde hair, soft on the outside and strong on the inside. One of the best medical ninjas in Konoha. After marriage, he has a bad temper at home. He often loses his temper, but is extremely loyal to his family. Ability: chakra attribute, water ninjutsu, super strength, medical ninjutsu, etc. Summary: a gentle and virtuous wife, a Tsunade with 90% strength. Akano, extra, the protagonist's teammate in the early days, cheerful, carefree, with blood red hair, suspected of having Uzumaki blood. He left Konoha in 20 years because the protagonist was promoted to Chunin. Suzuki, extra, the protagonist's early team leader, arranged by the 3rd generation to monitor the protagonist and sympathized with the protagonist's experience. He has a responsible heart under a lazy appearance. He was transferred away in Konoha in 20 years because of the shortage of staff in the 3rd generation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 11 Bead Evolution. Late at night, Yaoshin was lying in bed. Zizi beside him had already fallen asleep, and the 3 children were lying in the cradle beside the bed, humming from time to time. The silent room was filled with moonlight, but in Yaoshin's eyes, the moonlight was brighter than that outside the house, and outsiders could not detect it at all. This is the benefit of Yaoshin's soul being completely integrated into this world. The mysterious beads no longer need to cover up the abnormality of his soul. The extra abilities can be released externally, so that people around Yaoshin can also get some benefits, but of course they cannot compare with Yaoshin. Yaoshin can freely choose the range of external release, but the maximum radius cannot exceed 30 meters, and it will not work beyond this range. Yaoshin can also turn off the external release freely. The light emitted during external release is invisible to outsiders, so there is no need to worry about being discovered by others. Yaoshin is now using this function to provide benefits to his children and Zizi. I believe that Zizi's strength will definitely be able to go further in the future, and the 3 children will not be mediocre in the future. Early the next morning, Zizi got up and began to feed the children. Because there were 3 children, They had to prepare extra milk powder, otherwise there would not be enough. So Yushin got up to prepare breakfast for them while Zizi was feeding the children. After making the milk powder for the children, Yushin began to prepare breakfast for him and Zizi. Because Zizi had just given birth, an extra pot of chicken soup was prepared for her. When Zizi fed the children, Yushin had already prepared breakfast. Yushin was sitting at the dining table eating. Zizi suddenly said to him, "It's strange. I feel much better after getting up today. I feel much better too." After listening, Yushin looked at Zizi carefully for a while and said lightly, "Maybe it's because you are back to your familiar environment, so you slept well at night." Zizi also thought about it for a while in confusion and finally didn't find anything wrong, so she could only nod, "Maybe," but a trace of loss flashed in her eyes under her golden hair. After the evolution of the beads yesterday, Yushin's senses were so sharp that he naturally noticed Zizi's lost look. "Hey, it seems I can't hide it anymore." So after breakfast, Yushin looked at Zizi who was cleaning up the dishes with a smile and said slowly, "Zizi, I want to tell you a secret." Zizi quickly raised her head when she heard it. The relief and happiness in her eyes could not be concealed. Finally, she said worriedly, "If it is not convenient to say it, it's okay. I'm just uneasy. I always feel that there seems to be something between you and me, or even between you and anyone else. But that feeling suddenly disappeared after I got home yesterday. I thought there should be no barriers between us, so I wanted to hear you tell the truth, but I didn't expect you to still hide it from me." What a sharp intuition. Yushin was surprised. "No, I do have something to hide from you, but since you insist on knowing, it's okay for me to tell you the truth." Although her husband was smiling, based on her understanding of him, since he didn't tell her the truth during the meal just now, it meant that the secret was very important to him. Since his secret was good for both her and the child, it didn't matter whether she knew it or not. Zizi shook her head and continued to wash the dishes in the sink. "If it will be dangerous for you to tell it, then don't say it." "Really? Are you sure you don't want to listen? You only have one chance." Hearing his asking for a punch tone, Zizi finally couldn't help it. She picked up the chopsticks soaked in water and threw them at him. She put her hands on her hips and yelled at him, "If you dare to bother me again, you will have to clean up these dishes yourself." Problem. Seeing Zizi regain her former charm, Yushin turned and left the kitchen, but the smile on his face was more sincere. Actually, it's not that Yushin didn't want to tell Kiko, but now Denzo's power has been established. What if he finds something wrong with his family and searches their memories directly? He can't just put a seal in Kiko's brain. With a happy mood, Yushin went to the Senju family again and borrowed the first generation's wood release training manual from Mito. In the following days, Yushin studied wood release whenever he had time, trying to develop a ninjutsu suitable for himself to deal with large enemies. After a few days of research, he found that the reason why wood release can absorb the opponent's chakra is that wood release can absorb the opponent's vitality, and chakra is composed of vitality and mental power. Once the opponent's vitality is absorbed, it is impossible for him to refine chakra again, so absorbing the opponent's chakra is the special ability of wood release. Since this road is blocked, then he can only take the road of sealing. Whether it is the magnetic seal of the One Tail or the seal similar to the Chibaku Tensei, he seems to be able to try it. As for the means of fighting large enemies, you can refer to the Woodman technique. Although you don't have the ability to absorb the opponent's chakra to recover, among all the attributes, only the earth attribute is tangible. It can maintain its shape relatively easily, and it has strong attack power. So after a few days of rest, Yushin started a new round of training, which led to Mito taking Kiko and the three children to his home again. However, at Kiko's insistence, Mito would have someone send them back at night. After all, they can improve their strength with the help of Yushin at home. Finally, it was time for the epiphany to restart. When Kiko went to Senju's house that day, Yushin said to Kiko, "What aspects of your strength need to be improved urgently? Think about it during the day, and give you a surprise at night." After that, Yushin left home and continued to train for a day. Since Kiko gave birth to 3 children at once, the third generation didn't assign him any tasks recently, so Yushin still had plenty of time. So Kiko seemed absent-minded all day, and Mito and Tsunade thought Yushin bullied Kiko. No matter how Kiko explained, they didn't believe it. When Tsunade sent Kiko back, she lectured Yuda for a while. Yuda did not explain, but just kept agreeing. Kiko was embarrassed. At night, after coaxing the children to sleep, Yuda asked Kiko, "How is it? Have you thought about it?" Kiko also struggled for a day, and finally decided to improve her chakra control and super strength first, so that Yuda would not worry about the safety of the family. Seeing Kiko nodded, Yuda said mysteriously, "Close your eyes, calm down and concentrate your energy." Then a wonderful feeling came to Kiko's heart, and the difficulties encountered in daily chakra control skills were instantly solved. And she also comprehended new advanced techniques. It seemed that in an instant, the wonderful feeling slowly faded away. Please collect, read and invest. Chapter 12 Instructor. When Zizi opened her eyes again, it was already bright. Seeing Yushin's inquiring eyes, Zizi said excitedly, "The chakra control can't be strengthened anymore. It seems to have reached its limit. But the supernatural power seems to have increased a little bit. That's not bad." Yushin secretly estimated in his heart that it was about half the effect of his own. Although it can't be compared with himself, it is indeed not bad. After breakfast, Zizi had calmed down her excitement and followed Yushin to the Senju family as usual. "Now is the time to burn your youth. Go. Run 15 more laps before 8 o'clock. If you can't finish it, you will be punished with 20 more laps. Good morning, Day. Don't forget to go to my house at 9 o'clock to clean up." Day, who was wearing a green tights, a watermelon head, thick eyebrows and big eyes, stopped running at full speed, showed a sunny smile, and gave Yushin and Zizi a thumbs up. "Don't worry, I will definitely clean it up, because that is the promise of youth." After saying that, he left another white smoke, and disappeared after a moment. Looking at Day running away, Zizi asked with a puzzled look on her face, "I can do those jobs when I have time. Why do you keep sending tasks to the village and specify that only Day can take them? What? Who knows?" Yushin retracted his gaze, held the two children in his arms tightly, and walked forward. His narrowed eyes made it difficult to guess his thoughts. Seeing this, Zizi did not ask any more questions, and followed Yushin with the children in her arms. Might Day is a recognized 10,000-year-old genin. He performs self-abuse like training every day, and suffers discrimination and ridicule. However, Yushin will not ridicule him. At this time, Day, because he only knows physical skills, and no ninjutsu or genjutsu, is not reused, and even being a cannon fodder makes people feel redundant. Therefore, except for occasionally going on a SEAL level mission as a logistics personnel, he spends most of his time in the village. Because of the peacetime, the number of missions out of the village has dropped sharply, and Day can only take on garbage missions such as weeding and finding cats. Moreover, no one is willing to team up with Day, a waste, so Day cannot take higher level missions. Yuta and Hatake Tsukumo, who are the same age as him, are already elite jonin in the village, and even Akano is a chunin. Tsunade and the other three who are younger than him have also been promoted to jonin. Only he has been a genin, and can only compete with the newly graduated ninjas for some missions. As a result, the parents of these newly graduated ninjas are very dissatisfied with him, and have ridiculed him. In the original work, when the three-person team of K, Genma, and Ebisu encountered the infiltrating Mist Hidden Seven in the Land of Fire, it was Might Day who went to the rescue alone. It is conceivable how bad Day's situation was in Konoha at this time. In addition to his exercise, he has very high requirements for the quality and quantity of food. When his life fell into great difficulties, Yuta decisively took action. 6 years ago, Yushin did not hesitate to use his few savings to specifically post rubbish tasks such as chopping wood, doing housework, and cleaning the roof for Day to do, which made Yushin's already poor wallet even worse. It was not until the 3 years since he was promoted to jonin that the situation gradually improved. Even after marrying Kiko, Yushin did not make any changes to this. It was hard for Kiko to hold back until now to ask. Just when Yushin sent Kiko to the Senju family and was about to leave, a Ranbu ninja suddenly appeared in front of him, and he was quite familiar. "Hey, Tsukumo, have you eaten?" Yushin spoke first and asked politely, looking at the squinting eyes in front of him, who was called the Konoha twin stars together with him. Hatake Tsukumo looked helpless. After hearing him call his name directly, the masked silver broom-headed Anbu directly reminded in a low voice, during the mission, please don't call my name, it's easy to expose your identity. Okay, I got it, Tsukumo, what are you doing here? Yushin smiled and nodded in agreement, and then asked again. Hatake Tsukumo didn't dare to talk nonsense with him anymore, otherwise his identity in the Anbu would be known to many people. Obviously, Tsukumo, who had just joined the Anbu, didn't know yet that his peculiar hairstyle had already exposed his identity. Yushin, please go to the Hokage's office immediately. The third generation Sama has summoned you. After giving the order, he disappeared without saying anything to Yushin. Looking at the disappeared Hatake Tsukumo, Yushin turned his head and looked at the Hokage building again and walked directly there. Yushin knocked on the door of the Hokage's office. Come in. Sarutobi's gentle voice came. Yushin walked into the room and bowed slightly. Third generation Sama. Sarutobi saw Yushin coming in and said with a smile, you are now more free than me, the Hokage. Have you rested well now? Hokage-sama, please tell me if you have anything. Yushin didn't respond to his words and asked directly what he wanted to see him for. Sandai was not angry when he saw him like this, and he still said gently, I wonder if you have any idea about becoming an instructor? Yushin was a little puzzled when he heard Sandai's words. He has always been a mission ninja. Now the conflict between Sandai and Danzo is not as deep as it will be in the future. Sandai still trusts this old friend very much, so if he wants to join the Anbu, he must first go to the northern Myanmar autonomous region for further study. Who knows if Danzo will just cut himself open. So although Sandai had invited Yushin to join the Anbu before, he was always rejected by Yushin for various reasons. Since Yushin got married, Sandai never mentioned this again. At this time, he suddenly wanted Yushin to be the team leader, which stumped Yushin for a while. This is also an idea I came up with, based on your current situation. After all, as a team leader, I will definitely not arrange too many missions for you to go out of the village at the beginning, so that you can have a lot of time to take care of your family. How about it? Do you want to try it? Sandai saw that Yushin did not refuse directly and continued to persuade. Yuda lowered his head and thought for a while, then looked up and said to the Sandai, thank you for your care, Sandai-sama. Seeing Yuda agreed, Sandai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. In fact, he didn't want Yuda to be the team leader, as that would be too wasteful for Konoha. You know, since Hatake Tsukumo joined the Anbu, Yuda has been Konoha's face. Many customers who encounter difficulties and need to go to Konoha to issue tasks will specify Yuda as the task executor. However, among this graduating class, there is a student who needs to be arranged, which gives Sandai a headache. That student is his old classmate, Uchiha Makoto, the son of Uchiha Kagami, who is also a disciple of the second generation. Because of Kagami's sacrifice, Sandai wants to arrange a better teacher for Makoto. Originally, he planned to come out again and accept Makoto as his fourth disciple, but his decision was strongly opposed by another good friend, Danzo, on the grounds that, although Makoto is Kagami's child, he is an Uchiha after all, and is not trustworthy. So Sandai gave up the idea of accepting a disciple himself, because there are some deeper political reasons. After a final search, they decided to go after Yuta, who recently had 3 sons. After Uchiha Makoto became Yuta's student, he also cut off the possibility of him competing for the position of Hokage in the future. Because until now, the Konoha high-level officials still have not completely trusted Yuta. After becoming his student, Makoto's political future was cut off. But Yuta is strong. In the eyes of the Konoha high-level officials, Yuta, Hatake Tsukumo, Tsunade and others are the pillars of the next generation of Konoha. After Makoto became Yuta's disciple, ordinary people would not dare to easily take advantage of Uchiha Makoto. Please collect, read and invest. Chapter 13 tomorrow morning. I wrote 7 chapters today. I have a terrible headache. I can't wait until the early morning to update. I'm going to sleep first. I'll post it tomorrow morning. Please feel free to collect it. I have saved the manuscript. Chapter 14 Students. The Uchiha clan, as a clan as famous as the Senju clan, is no smaller than the Senju clan. At this time, in a small forest in the clan, a young man was working hard. The young man had short black hair. Although his appearance was not particularly handsome, he gave people a very comfortable feeling. Sweat flowed down his forehead, but his eyes did not blink, and he waved the short sword in his hand again and again with a standard posture. The boy stopped practicing, wiped the sweat from his face with his hand, and showed a warm smile. Finally graduated. From tomorrow, I will become a real ninja. When the boy was happy about his upcoming ninja career, a harsh voice came from behind. A guy who doesn't even open the Sharingan is a waste, even if he becomes a ninja. Just like his stupid and ridiculous father, he is a traitor to the Uchiha. After hearing the ridicule of the tribe members, the boy did not refute, silently put away the short sword, and left the place directly, but no one noticed the flash of blood red in the boy's eyes. Damn, Makoto, this guy is too arrogant, isn't he? The Uchiha clan member who had just mocked the boy saw that Makoto ignored him and directly planned to stop Makoto and teach him a lesson. Okay, why are you fussing with a little kid? Anyway, a loser like him will die soon. TSK. That loser got a bargain. After hearing his companion's words, the Uchiha also stopped and said unhappily to Uchiha Makoto's back. Uchiha Makoto listened to the words of his clan members, clenched his fists tightly, and kept asking in his heart, why? Why is it like this? Obviously, my father is also trying to ease the conflict between the clan and the village. Why do the clan members say he is a traitor? The next day, Uchiha Makoto, who was worried, came to the classroom early and saw the head teacher standing on the podium, and a warm smile was put on his face again. Morning, Mr. Fujita. He greeted the head teacher respectfully, and then he walked to his seat and sat down, waiting for the teacher to announce the class division later. Around 7:30, the students arrived one after another. Teacher Fujita patted the desk. Quiet. Soon, Teacher Fujita began to announce the names of the three-person teams. Mori Notaro, Kamichika Uaya, Yamashiro Aoba, Jikiko Ono, Shirano Fujima, Iran Ocean Take. Uchiha Makoto, Harutoko, your team is incomplete. Other genin will be added to your team later. The leading jonin will come to lead you later. I hope you can train hard and contribute to the village. Fujita announced the final result. This is the result of combining the personality, specialty, and comprehensive performance of each student. Those with talent will naturally have a leading jonin to help these Konoha seedlings get started, so that they can grow into strong leaks as soon as possible. Those without potential and background will naturally be assigned a chunin and start their own ninja career. As for how many will survive in the end, it is up to fate. The only exception is the group of Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko. They form a team with two outstanding students and add a genin from outside the school. Really, I hope there won't be any weird things in my team. The leader of the team should be more reliable. Harutoko looked at Uchiha Makoto hesitantly. If she had a choice, she would rather let any of the students next to her join her team. Strength is secondary, and the key is familiarity. Uchiha Makoto said with a smile. I hope so, but don't worry, I think the village will make reasonable arrangements. Soon, one after another, the jonin appeared and took away their respective teams. The teams that were not selected by the jonin looked disappointed. Uchiha Makoto, Harutoko, you two follow me. I, Yuta, will be your leader. A person with silver hair and a smile on his face stood at the door of the classroom. Harutoko and Uchiha Makoto looked at each other, immediately stood up, and followed Yuta. The three of them started to shuffle quickly and headed straight to the training ground in the village. Along the way, the three of them did not speak and moved at high speed in silence. Yushin observed the two people with his peripheral vision and nodded secretly. At least the basic quality was passed. Soon, the three of them came to a training ground. Yushin, you are here? Seeing the three of them arrive at the training ground, a watermelon-headed man wearing a green tights, thick eyebrows and big eyes ran over and looked at the three of them excitedly. That's right, the last member of the team is Might Day. This is also one of the conditions for Yushin to agree to be a mentor. Yesterday, when Day was cleaning Yushin's house, Yushin had already told him that he would join his team. When Day heard the news, he burst into tears. When Yushin saw Day crying with joy, he felt that it was right to let Day join his team. After all, hard-working people should not be let down. Day was waiting here early this morning. After all, this was his first time to form a regular team with others, and he didn't want to leave a bad impression on his future teammates. However, unlike the excited Day, after seeing that his last teammate was the famous Might Day in the village, Harutoko couldn't help but shout, "No way, he is our last teammate? Are you kidding me?" Although she didn't say it explicitly, everyone could hear the disgust in her tone. Although Uchiha Makoto didn't say anything, the wrinkles that flashed across his brows showed that he was also dissatisfied with this teammate. You'd naturally saw the expressions of the three of them, but he didn't expect that Harutoko, a girl with short black hair, had such a straightforward personality that the excited Day was embarrassed and stunned there. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit awkward, Yuda still looked at them with a smile, wanting to see how they would solve it. Finally, it was Uchiha Makoto who broke the awkward atmosphere. Ahem. Hello, Senior Day. I didn't expect that our last teammate would be Senior Day. Fujiko didn't mean any harm. She was just a little surprised, so she was so excited that she said something she didn't want to say. Chuntengzi knew that she had said the wrong thing at this time. She quickly nodded and said, "Yes, Senior Day. I was just too excited just now. I hope you don't mind." Seeing that his two teammates apologized to him, Day, who was embarrassed just now, felt a little embarrassed. "It's okay. I will try my best to prove myself." He touched the back of his head and said casually, but before Uchiha Makoto and Chuntengzi could breathe a sigh of relief, Day suddenly raised his thumb, showing his sparkling teeth, and raised his thick eyebrows, because that is the call of youth. Puff. Although he had often heard various rumors about Day before, Chuntengzi couldn't help laughing when he saw it for the first time. Even the usually gentle Uchiha Makoto couldn't help but twitch his mouth a few times. Is this teammate really reliable? The two couldn't help but worry in their hearts. Today, 9 people voted for this book. What a surprise. I'll post 1 chapter first. I'll post 2 chapters tomorrow morning. I'm going to sleep now. Good night, everyone. Chapter 15 Testing. At the Konoha training ground, he saw his 3 students. Well, Day should be counted, even though he is the same age as Yuta. Seeing his students getting along so happily, Harutoko, which eye did you see? I thought you were just squinting, but I didn't expect you were blind. Yuta said gently, since everyone is here, let's introduce ourselves first. I'll start first, right? Yuta, male, 18 years old, Jonin, married. Specialties, swordsmanship, wind escape and earth escape ninjutsu, and a little sealing technique. Okay, who's next? Yuta didn't plan to talk about bloodline limits, because these were his backup plans. Although his strength was no longer afraid of anyone in Konoha now, well, except Mito. But Sarutobi and the others were in control of justice, so it was better to be careful, otherwise Danzo might come to check the water meter one day. Might Day, male, 18 years old, genin, unmarried. Specialties, taijutsu. Hobbies, training, spending my youth. Harutoko, female, 10 years old, genin, UN. There's no need to introduce this one. Day is an adult, so it's okay. You two little brats don't need an introduction. Looking at Yuta who was still smiling, Harutoko instantly felt that the man with squinting eyes was not a good person. Tsunade, Naoki, that's right, squinty eyes are bad. Mito. The interrupted Harutoko rolled her eyes at Yuta and continued to introduce specialties, chakra control, wind escape. Uchiha Makoto finally introduced Uchiha Makoto, male, 10 years old, genin. Specialties, swordsmanship, fire escape and lightning escape. After listening to everyone's introductions, Yuta clapped his hands and said, okay, now that everyone is familiar with each other, let's start the first task, strength test. This is also for everyone to better understand their teammates. The 3 of you should discuss it first. You will have to fight with me later. Don't worry, I will be very gentle. Looking at Yuta with a foxy face, Day couldn't help but shudder. He hurriedly pulled his 2 teammates aside and said with a serious face, this is bad. We actually have to fight with Yuta. You better be careful later. Harutoko was confused. What? Teacher Yuta is strong? Before Day spoke, Uchiha Makoto on the side also had a serious expression on his face. Very strong. Very strong. It can be said that apart from the Hokage, there is no stronger ninja than Mr. Yuta in the village. Most of the clients of the S-level tasks in the village specify that their tasks can only be taken by senior Hatake Tsukumo and Mr. Yuta, and their task completion rate is 100%. Harutoko opened her mouth wide, unable to believe that the little eyes, who was only a few years older than her, were so powerful. Day continued, I don't know how strong the Hokage is, but Yuta is definitely much stronger than Tsukumo. Although they are called the twin stars of Konoha, Tsukumo has never won when the two compete. And I can feel that Yuta definitely held back at that time, otherwise Tsukumo would not be able to take a single move. Wow. Senior Day actually saw Mr. Yuta and Senior Hatake Tsukumo sparring, so have you ever fought with them? Harutoko forgot the fear of fighting with Yuta at this time, and asked Day with a gossipy look on her face. Uchiha Makoto also looked at him curiously. Day touched the back of his head in embarrassment, and said with a slightly red face, if we only talk about physical skills, I'm a little stronger than Tsukumo, but I'm no match for Yushin. If I try my best, I will be a little weaker than Tsukumo, but Yushin can beat both of us, and even if Tsukumo and I join forces, we can't do it. Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko looked at Day in disbelief. You are bragging. Why are you still a genin when you are so strong? You have to compete with those graduates for missions. But after thinking about the current situation, the two shook their heads. Is this rare beast in front of them really that strong? Day didn't look at their expressions and continued, so you must be careful later. Although Yushin will not use his full strength, even so, we are not his opponent. So in order to hold on for a while later, let's think about how to cooperate first. At this time, Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko didn't care about guessing Day's strength. The three of them discussed for a while, and walked directly to Yushin. Looking at their instructor in front of them, Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko couldn't help swallowing their saliva. Day also stared at his best friend with a serious face. What, have you already thought about how to lose later? Yushin said to the three people in an infuriating tone. Stop talking big. Go, Day. Harutoko couldn't help it first, and after shouting, she rushed directly towards Yushin. Fifth gate, Dooman, open. Day opened the 5 gates directly and kicked Yushin fiercely before Harutoko. Day knew that he had to go all out to fight Yushin, otherwise he would not even have a chance to fight back. Day under the 5 gates was brewing a unique sense of oppression. You must be kidding. Day is so strong. Harutoko was stunned when she saw Day attack Yushin first. When she saw Day's strength, she exclaimed. Uchiha Makoto also opened his mouth wide, looking at Day who was fighting with Yushin. How could this guy be regarded as a joke by people? Sure enough, people's eyes cannot see the truth, so my father must not be the traitor that the tribe said. Don't just stand there. I can't hold on for much longer. You guys act according to the plan. I'll hold him back for a while. I can't believe it. I've also been wrong sometimes. Tsukumo, how much do you know about this might Day? At this time in the Hokage's office, the third Hokage, who was observing Yuta and the others with a crystal ball, was also shocked by the strength Day showed. It turned out that this 10,000-year-old genin, who was ridiculed by people, had been hiding such a terrifying strength. Hearing the question from the third generation, Hatake Tsukumo, who was waiting in the Hokage's office, immediately replied, Mike Day entered school with me and Yuta, but I graduated 2 years earlier than them. However, Day's strength has always been very strong, but he has always been ignored because he does not know any ninjutsu. To be honest, if it is just a physical skill competition, I'm not Day's opponent. Oh. Hearing Hatake Tsukumo's praise of Mike Day, the third generation also became interested, so he stopped watching the test of Uchiha Makoto and others, and asked Hatake Tsukumo directly, then did you know the strength of Day before? What's the matter with his sudden burst of ninjutsu? Seeing that the third generation was interested in Day, Hatake Tsukumo also wanted to take the opportunity to fight for Day, so he told the third generation in detail how he competed with Yuta and Day, how Day trained hard, and how Day perfected the 8 gates. After listening to Hatake Tsukumo's introduction, the third generation lit up his pipe and took a deep puff, and the whole person was shrouded in thick smoke. After a long time, he sighed, it's my fault. Hataksakumo thought that the third generation was deeply remorseful because he failed to discover Day's talent in time. But he didn't notice that the third generation's eyes, shrouded in smoke, flashed a trace of deep fear. Please collect, please read, please invest. Chapter 16. The leaves are about to fly. At this time, in the training ground, facing Day's attack, Yushin turned his body to the side and stretched out his hand to grab Day's ankle. Konoha Goriki whirlwind. Day was not surprised to see Yushin dodge his attack. He supported himself with his hands and stood upside down and kicked Yushin with his legs spinning. Bang! Yushin's hand that was grabbing Day collided directly with Day's kicking leg, and the wind and waves that were stirred up hurt the faces of Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko who were watching. Fire style, great fireball technique. Uchiha Makoto saw the opportunity, jumped directly into the air, and blasted out a fire style. Be careful. Mike Day saw Yushin's figure flash and disappear. He shouted to Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko. After Uchiha Makoto's fire style missed, he immediately took out a kunai and threw it around to prevent Yushin's surprise attack, but he was still a step slow. Swish, swish, swish. After several kunai hit in vain, Yuta's figure instantly appeared behind Harutoko, and a knife hit her back of the neck. Harutoko felt dizzy and didn't know anything. Yuta smiled and stood there. He turned to look at Mike Day and Uchiha Makoto who were on guard. It's not a good habit to be absent-minded during a battle. Uchiha Makoto and Mike Day stared at Yuta with serious faces. They knew that he couldn't maintain this state for long. Since the plan they discussed could not be implemented, he and Yuta would have a good fight. Konoha big tornado. Day kicked Yuta with a spinning kick. Yuta jumped back and dodged the attack. These two are so strong. Uchiha Makoto stood aside and sighed. Then he also took out a kunai and threw it at Yuta. 4 kunai flew towards Yuta in a square. Yuta forced Day's attack back and grabbed a flying kunai. Ding, ding, ding. 3 times in a row, the kunai thrown by Uchiha Makoto pierced Yushin's feet. Uchiha Makoto saw this and smiled bitterly. This is the strength of the first person under Konoha Hokage. The gap is too big. Day may be too excited to fight, and he didn't care about his teammates, and kicked Yushin. As a punch was thrown, the sound of fists and feet colliding between the two people was endless, and the figures quickly crossed and flashed, stirring up dust all over the sky. Awesome. I can't see it clearly. Uchiha Makoto watched the fight between the two and was shocked. Although Harutoko, who was already awake, didn't say anything, she was still extremely shocked. In the training ground, Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko could no longer intervene in the fight at this time. Yushin didn't use anything else, and only used physical skills to fight with Day. Yushin raised his hand to block Day's punch, and then retreated more than 10 meters with the inertia of this punch, pulling the distance between the two. Take it, Yushin. Li Lionhua. Day kicked towards Yushin. The speed was so fast that the friction with the air produced flames and burned. Super strength punch. Yuta's fist also condensed a large amount of chakra and hit Day. The collision of fists and feet caused a huge explosion. The airwave generated by the explosion made the two onlookers almost unable to open their eyes. The dust in the sky submerged the figures of the two people, making it difficult for them to see the situation in the training ground. Makoto, what's wrong? Harutoko asked impatiently. Uchiha Makoto said, the chakra explosion is too violent. It's a little unclear. Oh no, something flew out. Uchiha Makoto suddenly shouted in shock. A figure flew towards their position, and the two hurriedly dodged. Boom. After smashing a hole in the ground, the figure finally revealed its true face. It was Day. At this time, Day had fainted, and his eyes seemed to be full of stars. Okay, that's enough. I mainly want to use this test to understand the status of your practice, and now it's almost done. After waking up Day, several people sat on the ground, and Yushin analyzed the problems they had just shown one by one. Even Day, who woke up, listened quietly. Okay, lunch will be served soon. Today I will treat everyone to barbecue. Just consider it as a celebration of the establishment of our Yushin class. Oh. Hearing that someone invited them to barbecue, even the usually quiet Uchiha Makoto cheered. So, you are looking for the notes you made before. Zizi looked at her husband who started rummaging through the boxes as soon as he got home, and her face was speechless. Then she ignored him and continued to feed the child in her arms. Well, isn't this my first time as a teacher? At least I have to know what I need to improve at their stage. This way I can better guide the students' practice. Great. I finally found it. Fortunately I didn't throw it away. After searching for a long time, Yushin finally found a very heavy scroll in a dusty cabinet. It's amazing that you can hide it until now. Zizi saw her husband's relieved expression and sighed directly. The next day, at the gathering place of Yushin's class, he handed the secret book that he had treasured for 7 years to Uchiha Makoto. Uchiha Makoto took the scroll solemnly, looked at the title on the scroll, and whispered, 21-day ninjutsu from entry to mastery? Yes, this is the ninjutsu enlightenment textbook that I, the teacher, carefully compiled. In the next period of time, in addition to practicing the 2 basic skills of chakra control and physical skills, you should study it carefully in the rest of the time. Yushin said. Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko nodded seriously and said, Teacher, don't worry, I will never let you down. After Uchiha Makoto left with a scroll, Harutoko followed him. Day couldn't help asking, Yushin, what about me? How should I train next? Just continue to train the way you usually do. But go to the hospital every 3 days and let Zizi check your body. Don't leave any hidden injuries, so as not to affect your future strength. Wow, Yushin, you are so good to me. Day was moved to tears after hearing Yushin's words, then jumped up, clenched his fists, bent his arms at his waist, and flames jumped all over his body. Then I will also train harder, and I can't let down the expectations of this youth. At this time, the 3rd generation in the Hokage's office was also reflecting. Did he use the wrong method before? Thinking of the scene at Mike Day's house last night, seeing Day's surprise when he saw him, his excitement when he was encouraged by himself, and his admiration when he heard himself instilling ideas in him, the 3rd generation couldn't help but sigh. It turns out that innocent people are easy to deceive. Thinking about how he always fooled the adult ninjas who visited him, no wonder they didn't like his chicken soup. They got the wrong target. The 3rd generation thought for a while, picked up a brush, and wrote 4 big words on the paper, Will of Fire. Looking at his handwriting, the 3rd generation nodded with satisfaction. He decided to go to the school for a visit next time. Those young ninjas in Konoha were so innocent. He should take better care of them. Collect, invest, read, beg. Chapter 17. 3 years in a hurry. 3 years passed in a flash. In the 29th year of Konoha, in the black market of the capital, a girl with short black hair said dissatisfiedly, What? Teacher Yuda is always mysterious. Every time he goes out for a mission, he will leave us here, and who knows what he is doing alone. Makoto, how about we follow him and see? If you don't want to be left alone in the village next time, I advise you not to do this. Teacher Yuda's reconnaissance ability is very strong. A boy with black hedgehog hair patiently advised, while looking around at the stalls on both sides to see if there is anything he needs. Suddenly, Uchiha Makoto saw a pile of ore in front of a stall owner, and a light flashed in his eyes. Uncle, how much are these ores? At this time, in a shabby little shop in the corner of the black market, a man wearing sunglasses and covered in a cloak was bargaining fiercely with a fat, trough-nosed merchant. No, this price is too low. If I go by this price, I will lose a lot. The cloaked man immediately refused after hearing the other party's offer. Sir, we have been trading for 2 years. When have we ever cheated you? But now the ninja world is peaceful, and the demand for weapons is not that great. Through our trade, the far country's arsenal has been saturated. Besides, your batch of iron sand is too much. If we accept it, we will also take great risks. So what do you think? The cloaked man pondered for a moment. The price is 80% of the previous price. Just consider it as giving you face this time. But this time, all cash is required and sent to this address. He handed a note to the cloaked man. Okay. I wish us a happy cooperation. Seeing that the cloaked man agreed to the price reduction, the cloaked man quickly agreed. Although it was not 70% of the previous price, it was still a big profit. Humph. I hope you don't play tricks, otherwise you won't be as lucky as last year. Seeing the cloaked man hurriedly agreeing, the cloaked man knew that he had asked for a low price, so he warned the cloaked man unhappily. Hearing the threat from the cloaked man, the man with the trough nose quickly wiped the cold sweat from his head. How can it be? Wasn't that a misunderstanding? You see, except for that time, haven't our transactions always been very pleasant? 2 years ago, this cloaked man suddenly found him and said that he wanted to do a big business with him. At that time, he sneered. As the daimyo's white glove, what kind of business had he not done? Big business? But when he saw the iron sand like a small mountain, even though he was used to big winds and waves, he was still shocked by the cloaked man's hand. Seeing that the cloaked man did not dare to show his true face, after several transactions, the daimyo had bad intentions towards the cloaked man, asking him to take the opportunity to catch the cloaked man during the transaction, and after interrogating him about his source of goods, he directly killed the cloaked man. In order to be foolproof, the daimyo sent most of the ninjas he trained. But what did he see when they arrested them? The overwhelming iron sand instantly submerged the ninjas sent by the daimyo. In the end, he was the only one left alive, and it was the cloaked man who asked him to pass on a message to the daimyo. That's it for this time, and next time, I will massacre the daimyo's mansion. The naked threat and brutal means frightened the daimyo instantly. Fearing that the cloaked man would not let him go, the daimyo even entrusted his safety to Konoha and asked Konoha to send ninjas to protect him. Although the cloaked man never retaliated against the daimyo did not dare to ask Konoha to call back the ninjas sent by Konoha. Recently, the daimyo has been negotiating with Konoha, intending to continue Konoha's ninja protection as a normal practice. Now that this gentleman does not cause trouble for him, he should be thankful, and he dare not have any bad thoughts. The goods are still in the original place. You can transport them by yourselves. I'm leaving first. After saying that, the cloaked man did not stay any longer and went straight out of the store. After leaving the store, the cloaked man walked a distance again to make sure that no one was following him. The cloaked man flashed into a dark alley and took off his cloak. With his silver hair and narrowed eyes, who else could it be but Yushin? As for why Yushin was here, it was because his children were getting older and older, and Kiko was pregnant with twins recently, so the house was almost full. As the victor of the First Ninja World War, Konoha naturally attracted a large number of people to settle down and do business, making the land of Konoha, which was not big, even more tense, and the price soared. Even with the income of the Yushin family, it was not enough to buy a piece of land big enough for his family to live in, so Yushin could only find another way to make money and use his ability to make some extra money. Yushin didn't expect that he had to fight for a house in his previous life, and he would have to fight for a house again after traveling through time. But for his wife and children, he had to fight. However, the market of Konoha had been divided up by several ninja clans, and Yushin didn't intend to expose his bloodline limit, so the source of the iron sand was difficult to explain. So Yushin set his sights on the capital. As the leader of Konoha, the daimyo must have stockpiled some strategic materials to prevent emergencies, so the daimyo needs a lot of iron sand to forge weapons. After some investigation, Yushin found the daimyo's white gloves on the black market. Through the transactions with the daimyo in the past 2 years, Yushin not only saved enough money to build his own house, but also secretly supported a lot of funds for Orochimaru to do research. Perhaps it was fate that when Yushin discovered that Orochimaru was secretly conducting research a year ago, he just sighed secretly. Sure enough, it came. Yushin did not make it public. After a coincidental encounter with Orochimaru, he secretly warned Orochimaru not to go too far. Now Orochimaru's research has just begun, and he has not experienced the death of Rope Tree, so he is not particularly radical. At the same time, Yushin expressed his willingness to give him financial support, not for anything else, but because Orochimaru in the original work is a person that Yushin admires, persistent and free and easy. At the same time, it is also for Orochimaru not to be tempted by Danzo. After all, when the time comes, his family bloodline will definitely be revealed. Will Danzo turn a blind eye to it? When Yuta arrived at the agreed meeting place, he found that Uchiha Makoto and Harotoko had already arrived. As for Might Day, he was directly promoted to Chunin in less than a month, after being visited by the Hokage. He was assigned to the Chunin team to do missions. Although his tactical IQ is not good, his combat effectiveness is high. Besides, He doesn't need to be the team leader, just responsible for the battle. At first, Day's teammates were quite unhappy, thinking that the Hokage had pitied him and promoted him to Chunin, so they were sarcastic today. Until one mission, their team was accidentally attacked by the Rain Ninja, and it seemed that they were about to be wiped out. Might Day opened 6 doors directly and kicked to death the Rain Ninja who attacked them, including 2 Jonin and 6 Chunin. Although Day also lay in the hospital for several months in the end, Day became famous because of this battle and has now been promoted to a special Jonin by the 3rd generation. I beg you to collect, read, invest, recommend, and save 30,000 manuscripts. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 18, Encounter with Kakuzu. After reuniting with his 2 students, Yuta looked at Uchiha Makoto who was carrying a bag on his back and asked in confusion, "Makoto-san, what did you buy? Why didn't you put it in the seal scroll? TSK, isn't it just a pile of broken stones? What kind of treasure do you think it is? Don't even let people take a look." Before Uchiha Makoto could speak, Harutoko couldn't help it and said unhappily. Yuta listened to Harutoko's words, looked at Uchiha Makoto with a smile, and said to Harutoko, "Since Makoto-san doesn't let me see it, there must be a reason for it. Fujiko, don't be angry." After speaking, he turned around and waved his hand, motioning them to follow Uchiha Makoto. The 2 hurriedly followed. 3 figures quickly shuttled down the road, and soon they were far away from the capital. At noon, they had arrived at a small town near Konoha. The 3 decided to rest in the town first, and if nothing unexpected happened, they could rush back to Konoha before dark. The 3 found a noodle shop and ordered a bowl of flavored ramen each. Suddenly, Yushin said to Uchiha Makoto and the others, "Day has been promoted to Special Jonin. After returning to the village, you 2 should submit your Chunin application reports. You 2 have been with me for 3 years. I have taught you everything I can. As for the future, it depends on you." Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko were silent for a while after hearing what Yushin said. In fact, their strength could have been promoted a long time ago, but in order to learn more from Yushin, they dragged it until now. Finally, Harutoko asked, "Why?" Yushin couldn't help but say with a headache, "It's because of the 3 little kids at home. Your teacher's wife is pregnant again, so she has no time to take care of the 3 big ones. So, you all know. Haha. It's rare that teacher Yushin also has a headache." Hearing Yushin talking about the 3 little kids and his family, Fujiko couldn't help laughing, and even the usually gentle Uchiha Makoto twitched his mouth a few times. The 3 sons of the Yushin family are now well known in Konoha. Because of the mysterious beads, Yushin's 3 children are in very good health. Since they learned to walk, they are full of energy and can't stay at home. As long as you don't pay attention, they will disappear. After Zizi became pregnant, they were even more excessive. Taking advantage of Zizi's lack of time to take care of them, they became the king of Konoha's children. They swept the streets with a group of younger brothers all day long, and were called street cleaning tigers. Wherever they went, there was chaos. So Yushin planned to resign from his position as an instructor and find a job in the ninja school. Anyway, he was not short of money now. After dinner, after a few people had a good rest, they continued to set off. Next to a forest, suddenly, the galloping Yushin stopped, turned around and squinted his eyes, and said to the distance behind him, "I thought you would give up, but I didn't expect you to be so persistent." Uchiha Makoto and the others were confused and looked at the place where Yushin was staring. A big man with a black mask, green light in his eyes, and a forehead protector of the Takigakure traitor on his forehead came out. As expected of the famous Silver Fox, you have a strong sense of perception. It seems that the reward given by the bounty agency is too low, the visitor said sinisterly. Looking at Yushin's eyes, it was like seeing a pile of money. "Oh. Then, Lord Kakuzu, can you tell me what kind of reward the bounty agency gave to make you follow me all the way from that small town to here?" 50 million. Although it is a lot, it is obviously not in line with your strength. When Kakuzu said 50 million, a trace of greed appeared in his eyes. Boom. Suddenly, Yushin stomped his feet hard, and a masked humanoid creature emerged from the ground. He collapsed directly to the ground, and the mask on his head was broken. "Are you going to do it now? Then you'd better be careful, you will die," Yushin said carelessly without even looking at the monster on the ground, staring at Kakuzu. "Stop bragging, kid. When I fought with your first generation, you didn't even know where you were." Facing Yushin's contempt, Kakuzu felt that his self-esteem was trampled on, and shouted at Yushin angrily, "Oh, since you have fought with the first generation, that's great. Then let me see how you fight with the first generation. Earth Escape Stone Man technique." After saying that, Yushin slapped his hands on the ground, and the whole ground rolled like boiling oil. The next second, a huge palm stretched out from the mud, followed by another hand, then the whole arm, head, chest, and finally the legs. When everything settled, a huge and burly stone giant appeared in front of Kakuzu, which was about 10 meters tall. It was the Stone Man technique that Yushin improved, based on the first generation's Woodman technique. It could have been bigger, but this time it was Kakuzu, so the size was enough. If it wasn't for the experiment of ninjutsu, Yushin could end the battle in an instant. But Yuda didn't plan to kill Kakuzu right now, because he was already made ATM. If he ran out of money in the future, he could just ask Kakuzu to borrow some money, instead of working so hard to mine iron sand. "Kakuzu, are you polite?" In order to deal with large summon beasts and tailed beasts, 3 years ago, Yuda had an epiphany, and developed a series of Earth Escape ninjutsu, by learning from the wood escape of the first generation. This time, it was a good opportunity, to test the power of these ninjutsu. After seeing all this, Kakuzu was surprised, but his fighting spirit was not reduced at all. "Your toy is far inferior to Hashirame's, kid," Yuda smiled and said, "then give it a try." As a ninjutsu created by Yuda, and developed specifically for large summoned enemies, it is far more than just a big size. Kakuzu made several big jumps in succession. After he distanced himself from the Stone Man, he quickly took off his clothes. His masked back continued to swell and bulge. In an instant, 3 masked monsters with black lines and strange shapes jumped out of their bodies. They were the same as the monsters lying on the ground, but the masks of these monsters were intact. Looking at the masked monsters on the ground, Kakuzu's face was full of haze. He saw his hands forming seals with murderous intent, fire style, head hardship. At the same time, the 3 masked monsters he was controlling also opened their masked mouths and performed ninjutsu. Wind style, suppression. Lightning style, pseudo darkness. Water style, water curtain tent. As an old and powerful man, the ninjutsu released by Kakuzu at this time was much more powerful than that of ordinary jonin. Under the impact of 4 powerful ninjutsu, the stone giant was actually a little unstable. After everything calmed down, the stone giant was seen with pits and bumps on his body, like a large broken mud doll. Is it still not working? Looking at the state of the stone giant at this time, Yushin was dissatisfied with the defensive power of this ninjutsu. After hearing his words, Kakuzu cursed in his heart. This is his strongest 5-element ninjutsu, but he couldn't even break the stone man in front of him. "You are still not satisfied with this? Do you want to let people live?" Yushin's words seemed to make Kakuzu even more angry. "Don't look down on me, little devil. Stop it." 2 of the masked monsters made hand seals at the same time. Compound ninjutsu, flame wind wave. A large sea of fire spread towards Yushin and the stone giant. This time, the stone giant did not stand still and take the beating. He bent his knees and jumped into the air, kicking Kakuzu and his masked monsters. The huge sole of his foot covered Kakuzu and his masked monsters under the sole of his foot. Seeing the oncoming sole of the foot, the 4 masked monsters drilled back into the body of the angle, and Kakuzu immediately transformed into a 4-legged tentacle monster. Earth resentment mode. Kakuzu looked determined, as if he wanted to die with Yushin. But when the stone giant stepped down, Yushin could sense that Kakuzu had already rushed several hundred meters away. Seeing Kakuzu's decisive behavior, Yushin couldn't help but twitch his mouth a few times. He is indeed worthy of being someone who has fought against the first generation. I beg you to collect, read, invest, recommend, and save 30,000 manuscripts. Chapter 19. The Taste of Forbearance. Run away. That's quite decisive. Yuda released his ninjutsu, looked at the two monsters with broken masks on the ground, and whispered, "Teacher Yuda, did that weirdo really fight with the shoulder?" Harutoko saw that the battle was over, and was very curious about what Kikuzu said about his fight with the shoulder. Uchiha Makoto was indifferent to this. Judging from the battle just now, that man was obviously not Yuda's opponent, let alone the shoulder. That's the situation. Yuda reported to the Sanda about the mission out of the village. In addition to the trip to the black market, he did not even hide the encounter with Kikuzu. Kikuzu? I didn't expect he was still alive and became a rebel ninja. The Sanda was a little emotional. He thought that Kikuzu was also a well-known master in the ninja world, but he didn't expect that he would end up in such a situation now. He looked up at Yuta. "Okay, I got it. Thank you for your hard work on this mission." Seeing that Sanda was about to chase him away, Yuta hurriedly said, "Sir, I have something to do that needs your help." Sanda paused as he lit his cigarette. This was the first time Yuta asked him for help. He was stunned for a moment, then looked at Yuta curiously. "Well, Kyoko is pregnant with 2 more children, and the 3 children have grown up, so there is not enough space at home. So, can you help me find a piece of land? I plan to build a bigger house. It is impossible to buy land in Konoha without Sanda's signature. Kyoko is already 6 months pregnant, so Yuta plans to buy the land now, build the house in a month, and move directly to the new house when the baby is born." Sanda felt envious after hearing what Yuta said. He has been married for almost 10 years and has no children. Yuta is so young, but he will soon have 5 children, and the house is almost full. "It seems that I have to work harder when I go back tonight, otherwise I will really be lonely like Danzo for the rest of my life." He looked at Yushin in confusion. "You don't know?" Yushin was frightened by the strange look of the Sanda just now. When he heard his question, he asked in confusion, "No what?" Seeing that Yushin really didn't know, the Sanda lit a cigarette, took a puff, and slowly said, "If you want to buy land, you can go directly to Tsunade to ask. Their Senju clan is the largest landlord in Konoha. As long as you have discussed it with her, you can trade directly. After that, you just need to register with consultant Koharu." Hearing the Sanda's words, Yushin suddenly realized how he had forgotten the Senju clan, the largest landlord in Konoha. As one of the 2 founding ninja clans of Konoha, Tobirama had allocated several plots of land to the Senju clan in Konoha in the early days of the village. This was not even counting the clan land. Now the Senju clan has more land than anyone in the village. After settling the land issue, the Sanda saw that Yushin had no intention of leaving, and he was already upset, so he asked directly, "Do you have anything else to do?" Seeing that the Sanda was a little impatient, Yushin did not dare to delay, otherwise what would happen if the Sanda disagreed later? "Also, I plan to resign from the position of instructor. As you know, Dave from our team has already left the team, and the remaining 2 are now strong enough to be promoted directly to Chunin. So it is completely meaningless for me to serve as their instructor. Can they be promoted to Chunin? Time flies." When the Sanda heard Yushin say that his 2 students could be independent, he thought of his old friend Jing, and could not help but sigh. He calmed down in an instant, and the Sanda said seriously, "Since they can be promoted to Chunin, let them write an application. What are your plans for the future?" The Sanda began to care about Yushin's whereabouts again. "This is the sign board of Konoha, and it can't be wasted. Well, I plan to find a job at school, so that I can get out. Don't even think about it." Yushin was rudely driven out of the office by the Sanda. Really irritable, Yuda walked slowly on the street, smiling and greeting the acquaintances he met, and couldn't help whispering. Yuda walked and walked, until he came to the door of a restaurant. Looking at the 3 big characters' Taste of Shinobi on the lintel, Yuda couldn't help but feel proud. Sure enough, there are some changes. Uchiha Makoto and Harutoko, who had been waiting here for a long time, saw Yuda, and Harutoko couldn't help complaining. "Teacher Yuda, you are so slow. You said you would treat us to the Taste of Shinobi when you came back. Why are you here so late?" Uchiha Makoto pulled his companion aside and reminded her to pay attention to her image. After greeting them, Yuda took the 2 into the restaurant. "Yuda-kun is here. What's up? Did the mission go smoothly this time?" As soon as they entered the door, Namake's Ryokan, Minato's father, who was greeting the guests, saw them and asked enthusiastically, "Don't worry, Uncle Namake's with us here, how can it not go smoothly?" Harutoko said arrogantly. "Hey, Yaoshin, you are here too?" Before Yaoshin could answer Long Giant's question, another person asked him. Yaoshin had no choice but to nod to Long Giant. Turning around, he saw Hatake Tsukumo and A, who were also drinking here. Yaoshin smiled and said, "Yes, the food here is good. So I often come here to eat." Hearing Yaoshin praising the delicious food here, Hatake Tsukumo pointed at Yaoshin and smiled. Everyone knows that this restaurant is opened by you and others in partnership. Do you have the nerve to brag like this?" Yaoshin didn't care about Hatake Tsukumo's teasing and asked Day, who was wolfing down his food beside him, "Am I right, Day?" Day heard Yaoshin asking him and hurriedly swallowed the food in his mouth and said to Hatake Tsukumo, "Yaoshin-kun is right, the food here is really delicious." Hatake Tsukumo looked at this innocent friend in front of him, smiled and said nothing, picked up the wine glass and continued to drink, then looked at Yaoshin and the other two and asked, "Why, do you want to come together? Where are the seats at this time?" "Yes, Mr. Yaoshin, it's all your fault that you came late, there are no seats." Harutoko looked at the full of customers in the restaurant and couldn't help complaining. "How about Yaoshin-kun, why don't you take Makoto-kun and the others to the lounge to eat?" Long Giant, who happened to be carrying the dishes, saw that Yaoshin and the others didn't have a seat yet and directly suggested, "That's troublesome." Yaoshin smiled and nodded and took Harutoko and the others to the back. Watching the backs of Yuta and the others leaving, Mike Day whispered to Hatake Tsukumo, "Tsukumo, have you noticed? Since Kiko gave birth to a child, Yuta seems to have become more kind." Hatake Tsukumo looked at Day in surprise. Is this still the simple-minded Day? How could Hatake Tsukumo not feel the changes in Yuta? However, as an Anbu, he couldn't say much about the matter between Yuta and the higher-ups. Begging for collection, follow-up reading, investment, recommendation, and 30,000 manuscripts. Chapter 20, Minato's Family and Son. Shinobi Taste opened 3 years ago. Yaoshin didn't know when Minato became an orphan. But out of admiration for Minato, after Minato's full moon, Yaoshin proposed to Long Giant, who was still struggling for life at the time, that he wanted to do business with him. After a discussion, the two decided that Long Giant would be in charge, and Yaoshin would provide funds, and the two would open a store in Konoha together. But what to run made the two embarrassed. In the end, it was Long Giant's wife who suggested that she was a good cook, so why not open a restaurant first? After some investigation, Yaoshin found that Long Giant's wife's cooking skills were indeed good, so Yaoshin wrote down the dishes he could cook in his previous life into a recipe and gave it to Long Giant's wife. 2 months later, Shinobi Taste opened. On the opening day, Yaoshin brought Jiraiya, or Ichimaru, Tsunade, and Hatake Tsukumo to taste it, and everyone gave unanimous praise. This restaurant named Shinobi Taste quickly became a popular store in the village in the future, and its business was quite hot. With the income from Shinobi Taste, Long Giant no longer has to leave the village frequently for a living, so Minato is now 3 years old and his parents are still alive. When it was time to eat, Uchiha Makoto added a chopstick of boiled fish inside. "No matter how many times I eat it, the taste of Shinobi Taste is still authentic. HMM. Chuntengzi swallowed the food in her mouth and continued to stretch her chopsticks towards the table. She also took the time to say, although many people have learned several signature dishes of Shinobi Taste now, none of them are as delicious as here. After saying that, she stuffed the food she picked up into her mouth, and her cheeks bulged. Looking at the two students who were eating happily, Yaoshin smiled and said, "If it's delicious, come more times." Hearing Yushin's words, Chuntengzi stopped picking up the food, angrily slammed the chopsticks on the table, and complained, "It's delicious, but it's too expensive. Uncle Long Giant is too black-hearted." After saying that, she picked up the chopsticks and picked up a mouthful of food, chewing viciously, as if eating Long Giant's meat. Uchiha Makoto on the side secretly poked Chuntengzi, secretly pointed at Yaoshin on the opposite side, and whispered, "This store is jointly opened by Teacher Shine and Uncle Long Giant. Ha ha, how come I don't know?" You, Uchiha Makoto, teamed up with others to cheat me, right? Last time I came here to treat teacher Yaoshin to a meal, you and they asked me to pay. After hearing what Uchiha Makoto said, Chantengzi stopped eating and grabbed his collar and shook him. One Piece, Sansao. Uchiha Makoto was confused by Chantengzi's sudden attack. The food he had just eaten was stuck in his throat, and he hurriedly begged for mercy incoherently. Seeing that Uchiha Makoto had given in, Chantengzi let go and said to Yaoshin, who was smiling at the side, "Teacher Yaoshin, you are too much. You actually teamed up to cheat me. That's my living expenses for half a month." It seems that Fujiko-san is very dissatisfied with inviting the teacher to celebrate his birthday. Yaoshin said leisurely, expressing his disappointment. "No, well, I'm just not happy that you guys kept it from me. I'm the only one who didn't know that this store was yours, Mr. Yuta." After hearing what Yuta said, it was Harutoko's turn to feel embarrassed, and she spoke incoherently. "Ahem. I almost died. Fujiko-san, are you going to kill me?" Uchiha Makoto finally swallowed the food in his mouth, coughed twice, and said to Harutoko with resentment, "Haha, you were so angry just now. Makoto-kun, please forgive me." Hearing Harutoko's cheesy words, who was usually carefree, Uchiha Makoto and Yuta got goosebumps. After finishing the meal, the group met Minato, who was in a hurry to go home, at the door. After seeing the three people, Minato politely greeted them. "Hello, Uncle Yuta. Hello, Brother Makoto. Hello, Sister Fujiko." Looking at the well-behaved Minato in front of him, and thinking about the three devils at home, Yuta felt that his blood pressure could no longer be suppressed. Bang. "Tell me, why did you throw the kitten from Grandma Nadeshiko's house into the river?" Before entering the house, Yuta heard Kiko was furious. After pushing the door open, he saw Kiko scolding her three sons with her big belly. As for the three dirty little boys, Maruta stood there stubbornly. Jiro looked indifferent, squinting his eyes at the angry Kiko, and only Yuto lowered his head obediently, looking like I was wrong. "What's the matter? Why are you so angry?" Yuta stepped forward and took the duster from Kiko's hand and carefully helped her sit down. She turned to her three sons and asked softly, "Why did you make Mom angry again? Didn't we agree when we left? You are men. You must protect Mom. Why did you break your promise again? You are not a good boy if you don't keep your word." The eldest son with silver hair and a round face pouted his lips, stared at his big eyes and said unconvinced, "We didn't make Mom angry. It's just. Looking at his hesitant eldest brother, the second son, who also had silver hair, but a slightly thinner face, and seemed to be cast from the same mold as Yuta, said slowly, "It's just to prove whether a cat can swim or not. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Don't you think so, Yuto?" The third son looked at his second brother who was asking him, glanced at his eldest brother with a determined look on his face, lowered his little blonde head, and said weakly, "I'm sorry, it was me who suggested throwing Nadeshiko's body into the river. Wow. We didn't mean it." Looking at Kiko with a gloomy face, and hearing Yuta say that he and his brother were not good children, Yuto was directly scared. He threw himself beside Yushin, hugged his thighs and cried loudly. Seeing his sad son crying, Yushin squatted down and picked him up and gently comforted him. "Okay, don't cry. If you cry again, you are not a man." Yuto stopped crying after hearing Yushin's words and buried his head in Yushin's neck. Seeing that he had coaxed his younger son, Yushin hugged Yuto and turned to look at his stubborn eldest son and indifferent second son. He couldn't help but feel a headache in his head. "Miruta, you tell me, what's going on?" "Humph. Just tell me." Miruta saw that his father was a little angry and he was a little scared. But thinking that he was the eldest brother, he couldn't show his cowardice at this time, so he still stiffened his neck and said it stiffly and then told what happened today. It turned out that when they were playing by the river today, they saw a kitten staring at the fish in the river on the shore. Suddenly Jiro asked a question. "Why don't cats go into the water to catch fish?" Some people said that cats can't swim, and some people said that cats can swim, so a group of little brats started arguing. Finally, Yuto said, "We'll know if a cat can swim if we try." Finally, they caught the cat and threw it into the river. But the cat was afraid of water. In a panic, it scratched another child. At noon, the child's parents brought the child to the house. After Suzuki comforted the child and her parents, the owner of the cat, Grandma Nadeshiko, came with her wilted cat. Poor Grandma Nadeshiko, she is already an old woman in her 70s. Her children are not around, and she usually relies on the kitten to relieve her boredom. Who would have thought that her beloved child was almost drowned today? After understanding the situation, Grandma Nadeshiko came with her cat. Suzuki said all the nice things to comfort Grandma Nadeshiko. Just as she entered the house and was about to teach the 3 naughty boys a lesson, Yuda came back. Yuda looked at the 2 older sons in front of her and the younger son in her arms, who was secretly winking at his brother, and her head was heavy again. I beg you to collect, read, invest, recommend, and save 30,000 manuscripts. Chapter 21 Enlightenment in the Face of 3 Generations. In order to give his children a better education, Yushin made a helpless decision to let his children win at the starting line. In order to prevent them from having filial sons like Itachi, Yushin first combined the Confucian Enlightenment textbook's 3 character classic and standards for being a good pupil and child from his previous life. After several days of editing and revising, a Confucian-style Enlightenment textbook for the ninja world was born under the pen of Wenzan Yushin. When a person is born, his nature is good. Natures are close, but habits make them different. If there is no teaching, nature will change. The way of teaching is to be specialized. The 6 immortals passed on the ninja sect. Teach the world to communicate with each other. Raising without teaching is a fault of the father. Teaching without strictness is the laziness of the teacher. It is not appropriate for a child not to learn. If a child does not learn when young, what will he do when he grows old? If jade is not polished, it will not become a tool. If a person does not learn, he will not know righteousness. In the first generation, the chaotic world was brought to an end. The ninja village was established to protect the family. The tailed beast was killed, and peace was established. The second generation was passed on and the ninja school was established. The common people were persuaded not to let down the young, make a name for oneself, and honor the parents. Glory to the past and benefit the future. People leave their children with a basket full of gold. I teach my children only one scripture. Diligence is rewarding, but playing is useless. Be careful and work hard. A guest room of the Cheyenne family has been transformed into a small classroom. The wall is covered with a dense schedule. Get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Morning exercises from 6:30 to 7:30, and collective recitation of the 3 character classic at 8 o'clock. Yuda knelt in front of the podium, smiling at his 3 sons who were reading books, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He finally experienced the happiness of a teacher in his previous life, and his sons had a complete childhood. Yuda deleted all the content about the 3 bonds and 5 constant virtues in the 3 character classic. As for history and geography, Yuda also made a lot of deletions and revisions. Okay, now I will tell you about the content of the book. First of all, there is the sentence people are born kind, natures are close, but habits make them different. What does it mean? People are all kind when they are born. Listening to her husband patiently teaching the children in the room, Suzuki stroked her bulging belly and showed a happy smile on her face. Since Yuda began to enlighten her, the naughty children in the village have been much more obedient because they have no leader. On this day, Yuda had just finished morning exercises with his 3 sons and were preparing to eat. Hatake Tsukumo appeared in Yuda's house, still dressed the same way as a few years ago. Hey, Tsukumo-kun, do you want to eat something? Yuda smiled and greeted Hatake Tsukumo. Hatake Tsukumo probably knew that his peculiar hairstyle had already exposed his identity. He didn't care when Yuda called his name and said in a business-like manner, "Yuda, please go to the Hokage's office immediately. The 3rd Hokage summons you." It was still the same line. After saying that, he ignored Kiko's retention and disappeared directly. What does the 3rd Hokage want to call me at this time? There are so many things, Yuda said unhappily, because his reunion with his family was disturbed. Although he was still very wary of Yuda in terms of ninjutsu. But as the Sign Board of Konoha, the 3rd Hokage still took good care of Yuda in life. Knowing that Yuda has many children in his family, the 3rd Hokage rarely assigns tasks to Yuda recently, so that he can take care of the family with peace of mind. Although Yushin was very grateful to the Sandai, on the one hand, he enjoyed this treatment peacefully, and on the other hand, he secretly thought that this might be the Sandai's strategy to trap him with a gentle place so that he would not dare to do anything. So although Yushin sometimes did not give Sandai face, he was still very obedient most of the time. For example, this time, after informing his 3 sons that the morning class was cancelled today and ignoring the 3 sons who were cheering behind him, Yushin went straight to the Hokage building. Knock knock knock. Although he was very unhappy, Yushin still knocked on the door of the Sandai obediently at this time. Come in. The voice was still as gentle as before. In the Hokage's office, looking at the Sandai buried in the pile of documents, Yushin also admired him at this time. The Sandai sorted out the slightly messy documents on the table, looked up and saw Yushin coming in. He said with a smile, "Yushin is here?" "Yeah." Yushin was obviously dissatisfied with the Sandai disturbing his rest, and just simply responded. Seeing Yushin like this, Sandai was not angry. After all, he was a little embarrassed to ask Yushin to come today. Ahem. Sandai lit a cigarette and took a puff of smoke. He took out a newly printed book from the drawer and handed it to Yushin. "Take a look at this first." Yushin was also puzzled at this time. All along, because of the distrust of the village, Yushin had never seen the documents given to him by Sandai in private. What's going on today? Yushin took the book in confusion, took a closer look, and was instantly stunned. How thick-skinned does one have to be to do such a shameless thing? There were 3 big characters written on the cover of the book, 3-character classic. This was originally nothing, but the author's column directly broke Yushin's defense. There were 2 names printed in the author's column in black, Sarutobi Hirozen and Yushin. Fuck, when did I co-write 3-character classic with this old bee, afraid of being banned, dang, and I was the second author. Seeing Yushin opened his squinting eyes and looked at me in disbelief. Sandai also took a long puff of cigarette to cover up his embarrassment. Ahem, let's take a closer look first. Sandai didn't know how to face Yushin now, so he could only delay it for a while and let him think about how to quibble later. No, explain. There's more. Yushin couldn't believe it and quickly opened the book and read it carefully. Yushin spent half an hour reading just 1,000 words. Not bad. Not bad at all. Although I think I have overestimated Sandai's thick skin, I found that I still underestimated the sentence 3 generations. Diligent in government. Treat the people well and suffer for themselves. How shameless is it to praise oneself like that and write it into the textbook? Ahem. What? Well, that's not it. I heard that you compiled a textbook to enlighten your children, so I took it and took a look. It's very well written, very educational, and very suitable for promotion throughout the village. So I changed it a little and plan to use it as a basic textbook for the whole village. What do you think? Praise. Praise hard. Praise the main person in front of you first. How can I read it? Can't I just not read it? Yushin no longer needs Sandai's praise, as he has been knocked unconscious by his thick skin. In the end, he could only say to Sandai, who was smiling at him, "As long as you are happy." Sandai obviously heard Yushin's dissatisfaction with him. Sandai felt guilty for robbing the fruits of Yushin's labor, and finally gritted his teeth and stomped his feet. "I can let you read the sealed book once for half an hour. It's up to you how much you can remember." Although this textbook has no effect on improving his own strength, but its political significance is too great, which is also what Sandai urgently needs at present, so this time he didn't care about his ban, and agreed to let Yushin read the sealed book. Begging for collection, follow-up reading, investment, recommendation, and 30,000 manuscripts. Chapter 22 Danzo's Anger. When Yuta returned home, he was in the Hokage's office. Seeing the 3 old friends in front of him, the 3rd Hokage had a headache. Danzo didn't know how he knew that the 3rd Hokage had let Yuta read the Book of Sealing. He immediately dragged Koharu Yutatane and Mitakado N and stormed into the Hokage's office aggressively. "Hirozen, you are too much of a mess." Koharu Yutatane started to blame. "It was a joint decision of several of us to ban Yuta from learning forbidden techniques. How could you let him read the Book of Sealing without permission?" Mitakado N also frowned. "Hirozen, as the Hokage's advisor, I must ask you to immediately issue a ban on Yuta to prevent him from learning and using the ninjutsu in the Book of Sealing." He is too dangerous. Danzo snorted and laughed. Don't forget his changes more than 10 years ago. He is even less trustworthy than Uchiha. The third Hokage knocked on the table with one hand and smoked his pipe with the other. He secretly despised these 3 old friends in his heart. With this political awareness, are they worthy of fighting him? So he was too lazy to explain and said calmly, since I have made the decision, I will not change it. Hiruzen, you are too stubborn. Yuta Koharu said angrily, what kind of medicine did Yuda give you to make you indulge him so much? The Sandai said righteously, if anything happens, I will take full responsibility. Danzo and the other 2 were disgusted. This statement can only fool a 3-year-old child, and he will not believe it, even if he grows up a year older. But the Sandai said such a statement, obviously he has made up his mind to go all the way. Danzo frowned at that time. He and the Sandai love and hate each other, and he is very familiar with him. The more determined he is, the more important this transaction is. So he tried, Hiruzen, if that kid really has something that threatens the safety of Konoha, I can let Gen. The Sandai shook his head while smoking his pipe. No need, the matter has been settled. It's more like giving your head away. If I hadn't wiped your ass, the grass on your grave would be several feet high. The Sandai despised Danzo in his heart. So, do you have any other questions? The Sandai frowned slightly, glanced at the 3 people opposite him, and asked impatiently. He still had to hurry up to arrange the promotion of this textbook, so he didn't have time to listen to their complaints. Danzo looked at the Sandai deeply, stood up and left directly. After sending Danzo and the other 2 back, Sarutobi Hiruzen stood up and stood in front of the window, looking at the scenery of the village from afar, with a hint of worry on his face. I hope what Mito-sama said is right. Bang. After Danzo returned to the route, he picked up the pen holder and smashed it on the ground in anger. Hiruzen, you will regret it. You will definitely regret it. Armor. Swoosh. A masked ninja appeared in front of Danzo, knelt on one knee, and waited for Danzo's order in silence. Looking at the route that he had trained, Danzo felt a little better. Take your men to Yuta's house, and bring Yuta here at all costs. Remember, at all costs. Even if you die, it's fine. Hey. Looking at his disappearing subordinates, Danzo said sinisterly, Sarutobi, just watch, I will prove that I'm right. Shimura Danzo might not have done anything radical to Yuta before. As long as Yuta hadn't learned the powerful forbidden technique, he believed that he and Sarutobi could control Yuta. For him, the interests of Konoha were higher than his own interests. Yuta was the guarantee of Konoha's mission quota. Even if Yuta was not trustworthy, as long as it was beneficial to Konoha, it would be fine. But now Sarutobi, that shameless monkey, actually used the ninjutsu in the sealed book to trade with Yuta. Before Yuta was completely out of control, Danzo didn't mind getting rid of Yuta in advance. At Yuta's home, Yuta was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the yard. As for Kiko and the children, Yuta asked them to stay in the house. Danzo's actions naturally could not be hidden from Yuda's perception. He had just asked A, who was a guest, to inform the 3rd generation. After all, Yuda still planned to live in Konoha, and he couldn't kill people for no reason in public. As for how Yuda got the news in advance, although the 3rd generation did not fully understand Yuda's perception ability, he knew that it must be strong. Otherwise, he would not have found the target's location in advance several times without any intelligence. Here I come. Yuda stood up, holding a knife in his right hand and hiding it in his sleeve. His face was no longer gentle as usual. For all the hidden crises of his family, Yuda planned to eliminate him in the bud. Danzo will not live long, and Kaguya can't keep him, Yuda said. Swish, swish, swish. 5 ninjas dressed as Zenbu surrounded Yuda, and one of them said coldly, Yuda, the Hokage asked you to go with us. After that, he took out a kunai and held it in his hand, as if they would kill Yuda on the spot if Yuda dared to refuse. Yushin was afraid of disturbing his wife and children in the room, so he said directly, did Danzo ask you to come? How dare you? How can you be rude to Danzo? The ninja who had just spoken directly scolded. Looking for death. Yushin suddenly shouted and didn't bother to talk nonsense with them, because he sensed that 3 more ninjas were sneaking towards Kiko. Hearing Yushin shouting, the ninjas also secretly became alert. But before they could react, their eyes blurred, and then a dark wave came, and they knew nothing. Yushin didn't even look at the corpse on the ground, and rushed directly towards the house. Boom. The wall of the house suddenly exploded, and a black shadow flew out from it. Yushin knew that Kiko and the enemy had already fought, and he didn't bother to dodge. He raised his arm, and swept the flying black shadow to the side. When Yushin broke into the house through the broken hole in the wall, Kiko had already dealt with the other two enemies. Seeing that Kiko and his children were fine, Yushin also breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to ask about Ziza's situation, Dare led the Sandai and several Anbu to rush in. The Sandai took a look at the scene, and instantly understood what was going on. Hey, Yushin, I'm sorry about what happened today. Don't worry, I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. The Sandai promised Yushin with a solemn face. The Sandai was also dissatisfied with his old friend for what happened today. I finally found a way to improve my political prestige, and you want to ruin it for me. Is it you, Danzo, who is too arrogant, or I, Sarutobi, can't lift the sword? It seems that I have been too indulgent to Danzo, and I just took this opportunity to weaken Danzo's power. The Sandai couldn't help thinking in his heart. Yushin could only say he in his heart about the guarantee of the Sandai. But didn't he plan to build a new house recently? Although the land has been obtained from the Senju, it costs money to build a house. Today, I just took this opportunity to get the money for building a house. So after a secret deal between Yushin and the Sandai, the world in which only Danzo was injured was reached. I'm afraid Danzo himself would never have thought that the murderer would have to build a new home for him before he died. If he had known this, he would have used the money to build his own grave. Chapter 23, Konoha Monarch Sarutobi Hiruzen. The third Hokage has always been resolute in doing things that can enhance his political prestige. Isn't that right? A week after the deal with Yuda, the students of the ninja school had an additional basic course. The 3-character classic written by the third Hokage and filled in by Yuda was the textbook for this course. This is probably the first time that the number of words filled in is more than the number of words written. Since the students learned this course, they have been full of respect for the Hokage. Especially the sentence the third Hokage, diligent in government affairs, treat the people well, and suffer for himself. It moved those simple students very much. For example, the Senju clan's land now, Rope Tree, who had just returned home from school, was showing off the 3-character classic he had just learned to his grandmother and sister. When a person is born, his nature is good. Natures are similar, but habits make them different. The 6 paths immortal, passed on the ninja sect, taught the world to communicate with each other. Raising but not teaching is a fault of the father. Teaching without strictness is the laziness of the teacher. If a child does not learn, it is not appropriate. If a child does not learn when young, what will he do when he grows old? If jade is not polished, it will not become a tool. If a person does not learn, he will not know righteousness. In the first generation, the chaotic world was brought about. The ninja village was established to protect the emperor. The tailed beast was killed, and peace was established. In the second generation, the ninja school was established. The common people were persuaded, and the young were not let down. In the third and fourth generations, the government was diligent. Treat the people well, and suffer for themselves. Rope Tree was reciting it with pride. This was the best cultural course he had learned. As for the others, it would be better not to talk about them. Mito sat on the side and listened with a smile. When Rope Tree recited the first and second generations, Mito could not help feeling melancholy. As a person who experienced that era, she witnessed that magnificent history with her own eyes. Heroes before and after the village was built, such as Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, Madara Uchiha, Izuna Uchiha, and Tenin Hyuga, appeared one after another, as well as the first and second generation Kage from other villages. They brought a splendid end to the chaotic warring states period. Thinking about it, almost 30 years have passed, and I have become an antique leftover from the last era. It seems that the next Jinkriki must be selected as soon as possible, and I don't know how long I can hold on. The Ninetales, who was also reminiscing about the past in Mito's stomach, suddenly felt a chill on his back and couldn't help shivering. Hoo la la. The Ninetales has always been so straightforward when it is unhappy. What's wrong again? Kurama. Mito, whose memories were interrupted by the movement in the seal, appeared in the sealed space and asked the big fox gently, "Who wrote the book your grandson is reciting? It's so hypocritical. It's written so well, but which human can do it? Be strict with yourself and lenient with others." What a bullshit. You haven't forgotten what that guy Hashirama did to me, have you? Nine-tailed fox, you are too strong and need to be sealed. He did it to me before I could react. He also said that I was too strong, but he was much stronger than me, so why didn't he be strict with himself? It's all bullshit. Listening to the nine-tailed fox's constant complaints, Mito also knew that the fox was hit too hard that time. I'm afraid that except for the time when it was summoned by Uchiha Madara, it was the most aggrieved thing for it to be sealed by Hashirama. Think about it. Anyone who is sleeping in his own nest and suddenly a big man breaks in and tells him that he has to be sealed because he is too strong. And then nothing happens. Looking at the smiling old woman in front of him, the chill just now climbed up the back of the nine-tailed fox again. Hiss. Could it be that this old woman was up to something bad again? Thinking of this, Kyuubi took small steps quickly to keep himself away from this woman. Hey, Mito, I warn you not to mess around. Hearing Kyuubi's threats, Mito's mouth corners lifted a little. He asked Kurama with a playful look, "What bad intentions can I have for Mito? Don't make excuses, it's you. Mito, we have been together for decades. How can I not understand you?" Kurama raised his head proudly and glanced at Mito secretly, indicating that he was not afraid. "Okay, you have finished complaining, and I should leave too." After speaking, Mito regained a solemn expression and left the sealed space directly, leaving Kyuubi cursing. At the moment when Mito left, Naoki had stopped reciting. At this time, he was raising his head and arguing with his sister Tsunade with an angry face. Tsunade crossed her arms and said with disdain, "He is a perverted old man. What about hard work and love for the people? That's just to fool children. You are talking nonsense. It's written in the book." The teacher also said that the Hokage is a great man who sacrificed himself to illuminate the entire Konoha. "I will definitely become a Hokage in the future." Naoki waved his little fist and stubbornly retorted. Looking at Naoki with a determined face, Mito was in a trance. The Naoki in front of her seemed to overlap with the figure who said to her with a firm face, "I must end this chaotic world." The same confidence, the same vitality. Mito couldn't help showing a resolute expression on her face. She must leave Naoki a stage to display his ambitions before she dies. And the boy who always smiles is the backing for Naoki to display his ambitions. Hey, it seems that I have to let Monkey and the others down. Similarly, in the homes of various students, after seeing the 3-character classic brought back by their children, the parents were directly shocked. "I didn't expect that the third generation is not only a powerful, diligent, and people-loving Hokage, but also a literary master." The 3-character classic written by the third generation is short, concise, and catchy. Its content covers history, astronomy, geography, morality and some folk legends. At this moment, everyone has great respect for the third generation who wrote this textbook. At the same time, they are also yearning for the achievements of the successive generations of Hokage described in the book. For a time, the reputation of the third generation broke through the sky, and becoming a Hokage also became the greatest ideal of the students of the ninja school. As for the second author Yushin, who is that? Bang! Another penholder was dismembered. It seems that the Konoha Northern Myanmar Autonomous Region is indeed worthy of its reputation. If the penholder goes in, don't think about coming out intact. Damn, I said it. Why did Sarutobi suddenly protect that kid Yushin so much? It turns out that he was waiting here. Seeing the reputation of the third generation getting higher and higher day by day, Danzo was almost furious. Damn it, damn it. What a bullshit Konoha Wenzang. He's just a pervert who cheats the world and steals the name. Why can he get such a high prestige? Why is it not me who sits on the position of Hokage? Looking at the mad Danzo, even if he was wrapped in thick bandages, he couldn't cover up the hostility emanating from his body. The eyes that chose to devour people passed through the bandages and traveled through time and space, as if he wanted to kill Sarutobi Hiruzen and Yuta. Thinking of the punishment Sarutobi gave him a few days ago, the tens of millions of dollars would be fine, but he also directly transferred one of his battalions and incorporated it into the Anbu directly under the Hokage. This is not cutting his flesh, this is to kill him. The poor Root had only 2 battalions before, one of which was killed by Yuda, and the other was directly taken away by Sarutobi. Now there are only 10 people left in the whole Root, including him. How can he cut people's kidneys in the future? How can he fool those big and small ninja clans to invest in him? Thinking of this, Danzo's kidneys hurt. Chapter 24, The Wind of Konoha. No one expected that the Enlightenment textbook 3-character classic would have such a great influence and spread so quickly. The capital of the far country, the daimyo's mansion. Everyone, please come and take a look at this book. Tell us what you think after reading it. I plan to promote this book in the Fire Country as an official Enlightenment textbook. The daimyo took out a copy of 3-character classic and said to the ministers below. One of the ministers, who was old but dignified, took the book first and took a cursory look. As a general who assisted the daimyo in handling government affairs, he had a high political acumen. He realized at a glance that, if this book was promoted, it would increase the loyalty of the people to the Fire Country and greatly consolidate the ruling position of the daimyo. But there were too many praises for the Hokage in it, and the achievements of the daimyo were not mentioned. So first of all, the part about the Hokage in the book should be deleted, and then the achievements of the daimyo of all generations should be added, so that it can be promoted. But as the head of all officials, he could not easily express his opinion. Then he handed the book to the Minister of Culture, who was in charge of education and sacrifices, and stepped aside and pretended to think about it. The Minister of Culture was also an old man who read a lot of books. He sneered at the book that the daimyo mentioned. It was just an Enlightenment textbook. Why did he need to make such a fuss and summon all the officials to discuss it? But after he received the book from the general, he opened it casually and glanced at it. He was deeply attracted by the content of the book. The daimyo and his ministers all looked at the Minister of Culture. The Minister of Culture was seen flipping through the book while muttering excitedly. After waiting for him to finish reading, the Minister of Culture solemnly held up the 3-character classic with both hands and shouted, "The Bible. This is a Bible. The 3rd Hokage is so talented." Then he bowed to the daimyo and said, "Your Highness, please allow me to be responsible for the promotion of this book. Such a great work should be seen by the world as soon as possible. I beg your permission." Looking at the excited Minister of Culture below, the daimyo's mouth couldn't help but rise. As the ruler of the Land of Fire, he is not a political idiot to be able to sit on the position of daimyo. Although his safety is now in the hands of Konoha because of his greed. But that is because of his lack of strength, which cannot be solved by political means. He can also see the benefits of promoting the 3-character classic, but just as the general worried, there are too many descriptions of the successive Hokage, but there is no mention of the achievements of the daimyo. Although promoting it in this way can increase the people's sense of identity with the monarch. But who is this monarch is not certain. After reading this book, everyone may run to be loyal to the Hokage, which will be the end of the matter. But as the head of a country, he can't say it directly. So before someone raises this issue, he needs to wait. Faced with the strong request of the Minister of Culture, the daimyo comforted him. He promised that, if the book is to be promoted nationwide, he must be responsible. This appeased the old man. At this moment, a minister who had just finished reading the book shouted, "Not appropriate. Not appropriate, Your Highness. This book cannot be promoted like this." Seeing that someone opposed the promotion of this book, the Minister of Culture immediately blew his beard and glared, and asked loudly, "Why is it inappropriate? Why is it inappropriate? If you don't tell me today, I will definitely write your behavior today into the history books, and make you infamous for thousands of years." The daimyo quickly advised, "Not so, not so, old sir." Then he secretly gave an encouraging look to the minister, who had just raised the objection. Seeing the daimyo's encouragement, the minister who was just stopped by the Minister of Culture was stunned again. He said to the ministers in the hall, "My lords, I don't deny that this book is a classic. But isn't the book too short on the deeds of the daimyo of all generations? Isn't it inappropriate to promote it so hastily?" Faced with the minister's reminder, the other ministers suddenly realized They all stole a few glances at the ninjas behind the daimyo, and no one knew what they were thinking. Finally, under the reminder of the minister, other ministers began to argue about how to delete the content in the book. In the end, the general made the final decision. The content of the book would not be reduced, but the achievements of the daimyo would be added in front of the previous generations of Hokage. In this way, 3-character classic, which was originally used by Yushin to enlighten his children, quickly spread throughout the ninja world, after being deleted and revised several times. Sarutobi Hiruzen's name as the master of literature has been widely recognized by the ninja world. It is said that the penholder of the root has been changed several times recently, and the daimyo of each village sent a large amount of royalties out of respect for Sarutobi Hiruzen. Even the cages of the major ninja villages sent a lot of supplies. Yushin looked at the dozens of slightly different 3-character classic in front of him. Except for the last deletion and addition of history, the part about the author on the cover. Yushin was the second author of the Konoha version, and the others were the third author, and some even fired him. Sure enough, politics. Yushin couldn't help but sigh. Then Yushin took the dozens of different versions of 3-character classic, and walked towards the Hokage building. Sarutobi, you will regret it. Yushin was about to knock on the door when he heard Danzo inside saying his classic quotes, and then the door was opened. The angry Danzo saw Yushin standing at the door and glared at him fiercely. Humph. Yushin was not surprised. Since the last incident, Danzo's attitude towards Yushin has become worse. Yushin is here. Sit down quickly. The 3rd generation saw Yushin coming in and hurriedly greeted him warmly. Recently, the 3rd generation has been in high spirits. The name of Wenzan resounded throughout the ninja world, which made the 3rd generation, whose position was already stable, completely surpass his teacher, the 2nd generation Hokage, and approach the 1st generation who established Konoha. Now the ninja world is saying, the 1st generation is the invincible Wu Hokage in the world. He used his unparalleled military force to conquer the world of Konoha. And the 3rd generation is the unparalleled Wen Hokage of benevolence and righteousness. He used his political talent to make Konoha the most prosperous ninja village. With the royalties sent by various parties, Konoha's always tight financial pressure has been greatly eased. And all this, the world does not know. How can Sande not know who brought it? In addition, his wife Beba finally got pregnant recently, and Sande also felt that it was Yushin who brought him good luck. So Sande was particularly enthusiastic when he saw Yushin. Yushin did not hesitate to take out the dozens of different versions of 3-character classic and threw them in front of Sande. Without saying a word, he just stood there and looked at Sande with a smile. You are here after all. Looking at the dozens of books in front of him, Sande knew why Yushin came today. Sande took a deep puff of the cigarette and then asked tentatively, 5 thousandths? But Yushin still did not speak and turned around and sat on the sofa beside him, still looking at Sande without changing his expression. Finally, after a friendly negotiation between the two, Yushin got 10,000 square meters of land near his new home. Together with what he bought from the Senju clan, the area of Yushin's new home reached 13,000 square meters. The cost of building the new house was also borne by the village, and Yushin planned to use the tens of millions of dollars that Danzo had paid for renovation. In addition to the 3S level missions in the seal book he had read before. This is all the benefits Yushin got from this Wenzang incident. Although he still suffered a small loss, he also found an excuse for the source of ninjutsu in the future. Collect, recommend, invest, follow up. Mice are not picky, just feed them a little. Chapter 25 New Home. With the promotion of 3-character classic, the ninja world fell into a weird atmosphere. In the past, the ninja world either had collective weapons and fought, or quietly recovered from injuries, waiting for the next battle in the future. But recently, the entire ninja world has fallen into a learning atmosphere of learning frenzy. Not only ninjas learn, but also high-level officials from various countries learn, and even illiterate civilians in the countryside have people reading and explaining to them. In short, the daimyos of various countries are using all means to promote their own versions of 3-character classic as much as possible. After all, everyone is not a fool to be able to sit in the current position. Naturally, it can be seen that, as long as the ideas in this book take root in the hearts of the people, their rule will be more stable. Konoha Hokage office. The third generation looked at the pure gold plaque hanging high on the wall opposite the door. The 4 big characters Shyangsha Wenzang are shining with gold. No matter how you look at it, you like it. This plaque was jointly funded by the daimyos of various countries, and there are seals of the daimyos of various countries below. Whenever he thought of the people who came to his office, seeing this plaque, and looking at him with respect, the smile on the Sandai's face could not be concealed. Bang! When the Sandai was intoxicated with himself, a white hedgehog jumped into his office from the window. Jiraiya, how many times have I told you? Come in through the front door. Come in through the front door. Why can't you remember? After lecturing Jiraiya, the Sandai looked at his disciple's nonchalant look, took a deep puff of cigarette, and suppressed the curse words that were about to come out. He continued, as the saying goes, if the teaching is not strict, the teacher is lazy. It seems that I have been too lenient with you guys, and I don't act like a disciple of the master of literature at all. Seeing that his teacher was going to show off his master's demeanor again, Jiraiya waved his hand quickly. I know, Sarutobi teacher, I was wrong. After saying this, he solemnly gave the Sandai a seat. Since his teacher was praised as the master of literature in the world, he has become more and more fond of showing off his knowledge. In the past, when he came in through the window, he would just be yelled at. Now he stopped yelling and started to lecture. From what a disciple should do, what a ninja should do, to what a teacher should do. From time to time, he would quote the allusions in the book 3 character classic, and he would never stop talking. Now Tsunade doesn't dare to come here. If he hadn't really encountered difficulties this time, he wouldn't come to make trouble for himself. Seeing that his student admitted his mistakes with a good attitude, the third generation nodded with satisfaction. Tell me, what's the matter with you coming to see me? Recently, you haven't come to see me as a teacher. This is not what a disciple should do. Yes, I will ask Tsunade and Orochimaru to come and see you more often in the future. This time, I was in a hurry, so I didn't pay attention. Jiraiya didn't dare to talk back to the third generation now, and quickly agreed. Anyway, he only said that Orochimaru and Tsunade should come to see him more often, and he didn't say that he would come too. It's better to die than to die. The third generation, who was in high spirits, didn't notice the loophole in Jiraiya's words. He nodded and smiled gently. That's right. The third generation now enjoys the fun of educating students. Jiraiya saw that his teacher was in a good mood, so he quickly brought up his own business. Teacher, can you lend me some money? Isn't it that the Yuta family moved to a new house today, and I have to give some gifts? Seeing that the Sanda was about to get angry, Jiraiya quickly explained, all my money was borrowed by Tsunade, so. Hearing that Jiraiya didn't spend the money recklessly, but threw it directly into the water, the Sanda had another headache. You said that you are a great literary master, and you educated 3 disciples. Why are they also unpromising? In the end, there was no choice but to give Jiraiya some money and let him go. Looking at Jiraiya's leaving figure, the Sanda's eyes became deep, and he murmured to himself, do you really not care? Or are you pretending, Yuta? In fact, the Sanda also knew how he got the title of literary master. But on the one hand, he needed the influence brought by this title, and on the other hand, it was not uncommon to curb Yuta's reputation. Although the Sanda was very excited, it was all for outsiders to see. People like Danzo and Tsunade who know the details of the situation. Every time they look at him as if he is looking at a pile of shit. But so what? As long as he can improve his prestige and limit Yushin at the same time, what does a pile of shit matter? I'm doing this for Konoha. Sandai couldn't help but say, but he felt weird after saying it. At this time, Yushin's new home is very lively today, with children playing and adults chatting. Zizi is also pregnant, preparing for the housewarming party later. It is a lively and peaceful scene, and everyone has a blessing smile on their faces. Miruta, Jiro, Yuto, Naoki, Minato, and young children in the village, who are of similar age, are playing games happily together. Originally, Yushin also invited Sandai, but Sandai refused on the grounds of official business, but said that he would have someone send Yushin a big gift. Yushin felt that he was embarrassed. After all, compared with Yushin, the main person, Sandai got too much in the Wonzong incident. Yushin didn't care about the rejection of the third generation. As long as the gift was delivered, it would be fine. It would be better if the person didn't come, so as to avoid the need to be isolated. The older adults, such as Mike Day, Hatake Tsukumo, and Long Jian, gathered in the yard, chatting together and discussing Yushin's new home from time to time. Yushin didn't like Japanese architecture. For his new home, he directly copied the layout of Jiangnan Gardens to build it. After seeing the scenery of Yushin's house, the guests exclaimed from time to time. At this time, Zizi had arranged the trivial matters and was entertaining the female guests. The women gathered together and asked about Zizi's health. At the same time, they envied Zizi's fertility. It has only been a few years, and she has given birth to 3 children. After a while, there will be 2 more. At this time, Jiraiya came to Yushin's house with Tsunade and Orochimaru, and met Yushin, who was welcoming guests at the door. Jiraiya originally planned to come alone, but he was stopped by Tsunade and Orochimaru. It turned out that Tsunade had recently lost all her and Orochimaru's money. After receiving the invitation from Yuta, they were having a headache about the gift. It happened that Orochimaru didn't have money to buy a gift, so he went to Tsunade to collect the debt. The result was obvious. When the two were worrying, they saw Jiraiya bringing carefully selected gifts and was about to go to Yuta's house. So the two of them decided to team up with Jiraiya. Jiraiya's gift was considered to be paid by the 3 of them. Jiraiya had no choice but to bring the 2 of them together. Seeing Yuta, Orochimaru greeted him awkwardly, looking at Tsunade and Orochimaru with empty hands, and then glancing at Jiraiya with a blushing face. Yuta knew what was going on, but Yuta didn't care. Today was his family's housewarming party, and it was a face-saving thing for him to come. He was not the 3rd generation, and Yuta would feel at a loss if he didn't give him a gift. Please support me by recommending, collecting, and reading the monthly tickets. If there are typos, please point them out, and I will correct them. Some of them were written when I was slacking off at work, so there are inevitably some typos. Sometimes my brain is confused and everything seems to be correct, so please forgive me. I will try to check it several times. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.